What if Robert Baratheon survived the Boar and discovered Jon Snow's true parentage? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. The Kingswood echoes with the thunder of hooves and the baying of hounds as King Robert Baratheon rides hard through the dense forest. His boar spear gleams in the dappled sunlight that filters through the canopy above. Behind him, a dozen lords and knights struggle to keep pace with their king's reckless charge. The wine courses through Robert's veins like liquid fire, dulling his senses and sharpening his hunger for the hunt. "There!" shouts Sir Balon Swan, pointing toward a massive shadow that crashes through the underbrush ahead. The beast breaks for the clearing. Robert's face splits into a fierce grin. The boar is enormous, easily the largest he has ever seen. Its tusks curve like yellowed daggers, and its small black eyes burn with primal fury. This is the quarry that has eluded him for 3 days, the monster that has killed 2 of his best hunting hounds and gored a stable boy near to death. Lancel Lannister rides close behind his king, his young face pale with worry. The boy clutches a wineskin in his trembling hands, the strong wine sloshing with each bump of his horse's gait. He has been serving Robert cup after cup all morning, just as his cousin Cersei instructed him. The Queen's words echo in his mind. "Keep his cup full, cousin. The king must not hunt sober." The hunting party thunders into a wide clearing where ancient oaks stand like pillars in some forgotten temple. The boar has turned at bay, its massive bulk heaving as foam drips from its snout. It paws the earth with hooves the size of dinner plates, gouging deep furrows in the forest floor. "Stand back!" Robert roars, his voice carrying across the clearing like a war horn. "This beast is mine!" The other hunters rein in their mounts, forming a loose circle around the clearing's edge. Robert spurs his destrier forward, his boar spear held low and ready. The wine makes everything seem distant, dreamlike. The world tilts and sways around him like the deck of a ship in rough seas. Lancel edges his horse closer, the wineskin still clutched in his white-knuckled grip. "Your Grace!" he calls out, his voice cracking. Perhaps another cup of wine before." "No," Robert snaps without taking his eyes off the boar. "I've had enough wine for 10 men. Time to finish this." The words hit Lancel like a physical blow. Too much wine. The king realizes he has drunk too much wine. Panic rises in the boy's throat as he watches Robert shake his head, trying to clear the fog from his vision. This is not how it was supposed to happen. Cersei had been so certain, so confident in her plan. The boar charges with a sound like rolling thunder. Its massive bulk hurtles toward Robert's horse with shocking speed. The destrier rears and screams, nearly throwing its royal rider from the saddle. Robert fights to control his mount, the boar spear wavering in his grip as the world spins around him. For a moment that stretches like an eternity, king and beast are locked in a deadly dance. The boar's tusks slash upward, seeking the horse's belly. Robert's spear thrusts downward, seeking the sweet spot behind the creature's shoulder. The wine clouds his judgment, slows his reflexes, makes his hands clumsy on the reins. Then something changes. The cool forest air seems to cut through the wine's haze like a blade. Robert's vision clears for just an instant, long enough to see the boar's true line of attack. He yanks hard on the reins, throwing his destrier to the left, just as the beast's tusks sweep through the space where horse and rider had been. The boar's charge carries it past Robert's mount, its momentum too great to stop. Robert wheels his horse around and drives his spear deep between the creature's ribs. The broad steel head punches through hide and muscle, finding the heart beneath. The boar staggers, blood frothing from its mouth, then crashes to the forest floor. Robert sits his horse for a long moment, breathing hard. His left arm burns where one of the boar's tusks grazed him, tearing through his hunting leathers to score a shallow cut along his forearm. Blood seeps through the torn fabric, but it is nothing more than a scratch, nothing fatal, nothing that will not heal. The hunting party erupts in cheers and shouts of acclaim. Lords and knights ride forward to examine the fallen beast and praise their king's prowess. But Robert barely hears them. He stares down at the boar's still form, his mind racing with a clarity the wine had stolen. He should be dead. That charge should have gutted him like a fish. Only blind luck and a moment of sobriety had saved his life. "Magnificent kill, your grace." Lord Renly Baratheon rides up, his face bright with genuine admiration. "I've never seen a boar that size brought down so cleanly." Robert nods absently, his gaze finding Lancel among the crowd of hunters. The boy sits his horse apart from the others, his face the color of fresh snow. The wineskin lies forgotten in his lap, its contents spilled across his saddle. "Lancel!" Robert calls out, his voice carrying an edge that makes several horses prick their ears nervously. "Come here, boy." Lancel urges his mount forward with obvious reluctance. His hands shake as he approaches his king, and sweat beads on his brow despite the forest's cool shade. "Tell me, cousin," Robert says, his tone deceptively mild. "How much wine did you serve me this morning?" Your grace, Lancel's voice fails him completely. He swallows hard and tries again. "Only what you asked for, your grace. Nothing more." Robert's blue eyes, so like those of his youngest brother Renly, fix on Lancel with uncomfortable intensity. "Nothing more? Are you certain of that?" "Yes, your grace. Absolutely certain." The lie hangs in the air between them like a blade. Robert can see it in the boy's eyes, in the way his hands tremble, in the guilty flush that creeps up his neck. Someone told Lancel to keep him drunk. Someone wanted him dead in this forest, gored by a boar while too wine-addled to defend himself. "Who gave you your instructions this morning, Lancel?" "Instructions? Your grace, I don't understand." "Someone told you to keep my cup full. Someone wanted me drunk as a sailor on shore leave." Robert's voice drops to a dangerous whisper. "Who was it?" Lancel's mouth opens and closes like a fish gasping for air. His eyes dart toward the other hunters, seeking escape or aid that will not come. Finally, he manages to croak out, "No one, your grace. I swear it on my honor." Robert stares at him for a long moment, then nods slowly. "Your honor. Yes. We'll speak more of that when we return to the Red Keep." He turns his destrier toward the path that leads back to King's Landing, leaving the hunting party to deal with the boar's remains. As he rides, Robert's mind works with a clarity that the wine had obscured for too long. The boy is lying, and badly. Someone in the capital wanted him dead, wanted it to look like a hunting accident. The obvious suspect makes his stomach turn with rage, and something deeper, something that might be grief for what his marriage has become. Cersei has grown cold toward him over the years, cold and distant and angry. But would she truly want him dead? Would she risk everything for his crown? Meanwhile, back in the clearing, Lancel sits his horse in stunned silence as the other hunters celebrate around him. The plan has failed. Robert lives. Cersei will not be pleased, and displeasure from the Queen is a dangerous thing. The boy touches his throat unconsciously, remembering other times when his beautiful cousin's anger had turned on those who disappointed her. The ride back to King's Landing takes most of the afternoon. Robert speaks little, his thoughts churning like a storm-tossed sea. By the time the Red Keep's towers come into view, crowned by the setting sun, he has reached several disturbing conclusions. Someone close to him, someone he trusts, wants him dead. The hunting accident was carefully planned, from the strong wine to Lancel's nervous hovering. If not for that moment of clarity in the forest, He would be feeding the crows by now. Robert dismounts in the Red Keep's courtyard and tosses his reins to a waiting groom. The shallow cut on his arm has stopped wounded, but it serves as a reminder of how close death had come. Lords and servants gather to hear the tale of the great Boar, but Robert pushes through them without a word. He finds Cersei in their chambers, seated before her mirror, while her handmaids brush her golden hair. She looks up as he enters, her green eyes taking in his torn hunting leathers and the dried blood on his sleeve. "You're hurt," she says, her voice carefully neutral. Was the Boar so fierce? Fierce enough. Robert moves to the window, staring out at the city spread below. It nearly had me. Would have, if not for a stroke of luck. He turns to face her, studying her beautiful face for any sign of disappointment or surprise. But Cersei's expression reveals nothing. She has had years to perfect her mask of queenly composure. "I'm glad you're safe," she says, and if there is a lie in those words, Robert cannot detect it. The realm needs its king. Does it? Robert asks quietly. Sometimes I wonder if the realm might be better served by someone else. Someone younger, perhaps. More worthy. Cersei's hands still in her lap, but her face remains a masterpiece of calm concern. "You speak strangely, husband. The hunt has troubled you." "The hunt has opened my eyes," Robert replies. "A man learns things when he comes close to death, things about who his true friends are and who they are not." With that, he turns and leaves the chamber, leaving Cersei to stare after him with eyes that burn like green fire. The game has begun, though neither player yet knows all the rules. In the Red Keep's corridors, Robert walks with purpose toward his solar. There are questions that need answers, letters that need writing, and allies that need summoning. The Boar may have failed to stop him, but it has done something perhaps more dangerous. It has made him think. The dawn light filters through the narrow windows of Robert's solar as the king sits behind his desk, still wearing yesterday's hunting clothes. Sleep has eluded him through the long night. Every shadow seems to hide an enemy. Every creak of the ancient stones sounds like approaching footsteps. The scratch on his arm throbs with a dull ache that reminds him how close death had come in the Kingswood. A soft knock at the door interrupts his brooding. "Enter," Robert calls, his hand instinctively moving to the pommel of his sword. Lancel Lannister steps into the solar, his young face pale and drawn. The boy has clearly slept no better than his king. Dark circles ring his eyes, and his hands shake as he closes the door behind him. "You sent for me, Your Grace?" "I did." Robert gestures to a chair across from his desk. "Sit, boy. We have much to discuss." Lancel perches on the edge of the chair like a bird ready to take flight. His green eyes dart toward the door as if measuring the distance for escape. "Tell me about yesterday morning," Robert begins, his voice deceptively calm. "Before the hunt, who spoke to you?" "No one of consequence, Your Grace. Just the usual preparations." "Lancel." Robert's voice drops to a dangerous whisper. "I am going to ask you once more, and I suggest you think very carefully before you answer. Who told you to keep me drunk yesterday?" The boy's composure crumbles like a castle made of sand. Tears spring to his eyes, and his lower lip trembles. "Please, Your Grace, I cannot—" "She would—" "She." Robert leans forward, his blue eyes blazing. "The Queen. Cersei told you to fill me with strong wine, didn't she?" Lancel's silence is answer enough. The boy stares at his hands, tears dripping onto his lap. "What were her exact words?" She said the king must not hunt sober, that you were too dangerous when clear-headed." The words tumble out in a rush, as if speaking them quickly might lessen their impact. "She said to keep your cup full, no matter what." that it was for the good of the realm. Robert sits back in his chair, feeling as if he has been punched in the gut. His own wife, the mother of his children, had tried to have him killed. The knowledge burns in his chest like molten iron. Did she say why? What danger did I pose to the realm? Lancel shakes his head frantically. Nothing more, your grace. I swear it. She said you asked too many questions when sober. Too many questions. Robert's mind races back over recent weeks, trying to remember what questions had troubled his queen. Then it hits him like a war hammer to the skull. Jon Arryn. Robert had been asking about Jon Arryn's final days, about what the Old Hand had been investigating before his sudden death. You may go, Robert says quietly. But Lancel, if you speak of this conversation to anyone, I will have your tongue cut out. Do you understand? The boy nods vigorously and flees from the solar as if demons were chasing him. Robert remains seated, his thoughts churning like a whirlpool. If Cersei wanted him dead to stop his questions about Jon Arryn, then Jon must have discovered something significant. Something worth ending for. Within the hour, Robert makes his way to the Red Keep's library. The ancient chamber smells of parchment and dust, its shelves lined with tomes and scrolls collected over centuries. Grand Maester Pycelle looks up in surprise as the king enters. Your Grace, how may I serve you? I want to see the books Jon Arryn was reading before he died. All of them. Pycelle's wrinkled face creases with confusion. The former hand read many volumes, Your Grace. His interests were quite diverse. The genealogy books, Robert says impatiently. The ones about bloodlines and noble houses. Ned mentioned Jon was particularly interested in those. Ah, yes. Pycelle shuffles to a nearby shelf and retrieves a thick volume, bound in cracked leather. This one especially, the lineages and histories of the great houses of the Seven Kingdoms. Jon Arryn spent many hours with this text in his final weeks. Robert takes the heavy book and opens it to where a silk ribbon marks a page. His eyes fall upon a detailed accounting of Baratheon bloodlines stretching back 300 years. Every legitimate child of House Baratheon is listed with meticulous care, along with descriptions of their appearance. Black hair, Robert mutters, reading the entries. All of them had black hair. His finger traces down the page, finding entry after entry of Baratheon children. Orys Baratheon, black of hair. Rogar Baratheon, black of hair. Boarmund Baratheon, black of hair. The pattern continues without exception, through generation after generation. Robert's blood runs cold as he turns to another section, this one detailing marriages between great houses. Here he finds accounts of Baratheon men who married Lannister women. In every case, the children bore the black hair of their Baratheon fathers. Black hair, he whispers again, his hands beginning to tremble. Always black. Joffrey has golden hair. Myrcella has golden curls. Tommen's locks shine like spun gold in the sunlight. Not one of Robert's children bears the black hair that has marked House Baratheon for centuries. The book slips from Robert's nerveless fingers, crashing to the stone floor. Pycelle jumps at the sound, his chains jangling. Your Grace? Are you well? Robert does not answer. He strides from the library with violence in his eyes, the genealogy book forgotten behind him. His feet carry him through the Red Keep's corridors without conscious thought, past startled servants and nervous guards. Rage builds in his chest like a fire fed by bellows, growing hotter with each step. He finds Cersei in the throne room, speaking with several ladies of the court. She looks up as he approaches, her green eyes narrowing at the expression on his face. Leave us, Robert says to the ladies, his voice like distant thunder. All of you. Now. The women scatter like birds before a storm, their silk gowns rustling as they hurry from the chamber. Cersei remains standing before the Iron Throne, her chin raised defiantly. You look troubled, husband. Did your hunting injury fever? Troubled? Robert's laugh is harsh and bitter. Yes, I am troubled. Troubled by questions about our children. Cersei's face becomes a mask of stone. What questions? Questions about why none of them look like me. Why none of them have black hair, when every Baratheon for 3 centuries has been black of hair. Robert steps closer, his massive frame looming over his wife. Questions about who their real father might be. You speak madness? Do I? Jon Arryn didn't think so. Jon Arryn spent weeks reading about bloodlines before someone poisoned him, just as someone tried to have me gored by a boar when I started asking the same questions. Cersei's composure cracks for just an instant, long enough for Robert to see the fear in her eyes. Then the mask slides back into place. Jon Arryn was an old man who died of a fever. You nearly died because you hunt drunk and reckless. There is no conspiracy here, only your suspicious mind. My suspicious mind? Robert's voice rises to a roar that echoes off the vaulted ceiling. My suspicious mind, that wonders why my son has the same golden hair as his uncle Jaime, the same green eyes, the same delicate features. The accusation hangs in the air between them like a blade. Cersei's face has gone white as fresh snow, but her eyes burn with defiant fury. How dare you suggest such a thing? I am your queen, your lawful wife. Are you? Or are you Jaime's whore, playing at being queen? The slap echoes through the throne room like a crack of lightning. Cersei's hand stings from the force of the blow, but Robert barely feels it. He is beyond pain now, beyond everything except the rage that consumes him. Guards! Cersei screams, but Robert catches her wrist before she can strike again. No guards, he growls. Just you and me and the truth. Tell me, Cersei. Tell me the children are mine, and I might believe you. Tell me Jaime never shared your bed, and I will try to forget this conversation ever happened. For a long moment, they stare at each other in silence. Then Cersei's mouth curves into a cold smile. Your children? She laughs, the sound sharp as breaking glass. You want to know about your children? You have no children, Robert. You have a dozen bastards scattered across the 7 kingdoms, but no true children. The children I bore are mine. Mine and Jaime's. The confession hits Robert like a physical blow. His hand releases her wrist, and he staggers backward as if she had driven a dagger into his heart. All of them. All of them. Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen. Not one drop of your blood flows in their veins. Cersei's voice is ice and poison. Did you think I would let you rot on me and breed your drunken spawn? Did you think I would love the children of the man who killed Rhaegar Targaryen? Robert's world tilts and spins around him. Everything he thought he knew crumbles to dust. The children he has raised, the heir to his throne, the future of his dynasty, all of it built on lies. Meanwhile, in another part of the Red Keep, Ned Stark sits in his chambers as Hand, poring over documents relating to the crown's debts. A soft knock interrupts his work, and Robert enters without waiting for permission. The king's face is haggard, his eyes wild with barely controlled fury. Robert. What's happened? Ned. Robert's voice is hoarse, as if he has been screaming. I need to tell you something. Something that changes everything. Ned sets aside his papers and pours 2 cups of wine. He hands one to Robert, who drains it in a single gulp. Cersei, the children, they're not mine, Ned. None of them. The words hang in the air like a death sentence. Ned's face goes pale as he grasps the implications. Robert, are you certain? This is not an accusation to make lightly. I'm certain. Robert sinks into a chair, suddenly looking older than his years. I found the book Jon Arryn was reading, The Genealogy of House Baratheon. Every child for 300 years has had black hair, Ned. Everyone. But my children, Cersei's children, they have golden Lannister locks. Ned pours himself wine with hands that tremble slightly. Jon Arryn. You think this is what he discovered? What got him killed? I know it is, and I know who brought him down. Robert's eyes burn with renewed fury. The same person who tried to have me killed yesterday. The same person who has been playing me for a fool since the day we married. The Queen. The Queen. Robert spits the title like a curse. And her brother, her lover, her partner in treason. Ned stands and begins pacing the chamber, his mind racing through the implications. If this becomes known, if the children are bastards, Joffrey has no claim to the throne. The crown passes to Stannis or to his heirs. Robert runs a hand through his dark hair. Civil war, Ned. Blood and chaos as the realm tears itself apart. Then we must be very careful how we proceed. We need proof beyond genealogy books and resemblances. We need witnesses, confessions, evidence that will convince the lords of the realm. Robert nods slowly. The rage is still there, burning like a forge fire, but it is controlled now, focused. Cersei confessed to me not an hour ago, but her word alone won't be enough. We need more. Jaime, Ned says quietly. If we can force a confession from him, or from someone who has seen them together, someone who knows their secrets. Robert stands, his decision made. We gather what evidence we can, quietly, carefully, and when we have enough, Robert's smile is cold as winter. When we have enough, we destroy them all. Outside the chamber windows, the sun climbs toward its zenith above King's Landing, casting long shadows through the Red Keep's corridors. In those shadows, servants whisper and spies listen and ravens fly with messages that could topple kingdoms. The Game of Thrones has taken a deadly turn, and Robert Baratheon has finally learned the rules. The morning sun casts long shadows across Robert's solar as he stares at the raven scroll in his hands. The parchment trembles slightly, betraying the fury that courses through his veins. Varys stands before the king's desk, his soft hands folded within his sleeves, his face a mask of sympathetic concern. When did this news arrive? Robert asks, his voice tight with controlled rage. Just before dawn, Your Grace. My little birds across the narrow sea are most efficient in their duties. Varys's voice is silk over steel. The Targaryen girl has indeed married the Dothraki horse lord. Khal Drogo commands 40,000 screamers, perhaps more. Robert crushes the parchment in his massive fist. 40,000 savages with Targaryen blood to unite them. And we sit here squabbling over Lannister gold while dragons gather across the sea. There is more, Your Grace. Varys produces another scroll, this one sealed with black wax. Prince Viserys is dead, killed by his new brother-in-law in a most creative fashion, if the reports are accurate. Robert's eyebrows rise in surprise. He breaks the seal and reads quickly, his expression shifting from rage to dark satisfaction. Molten gold poured over his head, a crown for a king, they called it. He looks up at Varys with something approaching approval. The horse lord has a sense of justice, I'll give him that. Indeed, Your Grace, the last male heir of the Targaryen line has met his end. Only the girl remains. Only the girl. Robert repeats the words, but they offer little comfort. A girl with dragons in her veins, and 40,000 warriors at her beck and call. How long before she turns her eyes west, do you think? Varys tilts his head, considering. Difficult to say, Your Grace. The Dothraki have never shown interest in crossing salt water, but with a Targaryen whispering in Khal Drogo's ear, he shrugs delicately. Perhaps it would be wise to take precautions. Robert throws the scrolls onto his desk and begins pacing the chamber like a caged lion. Precautions. Yes. Send word to the free cities. I want every sellsword company, every assassin with a blade. I want them hunting this Targaryen girl. put a price on her head that would buy a kingdom. As you command, Your Grace. And Varys. Robert stops his pacing, fixing the eunuch with his blue stare. I want to know everything about the Targaryens. Every secret, every bloodline, every bastard that might have a claim. If there are more dragons hiding in the shadows, I want them found. Varys bows low. Of course, Your Grace. Though if I may suggest, Lord Stark might prove valuable in such endeavours. His knowledge of the final days of the Targaryen dynasty is quite comprehensive. Robert's expression darkens at the mention of Ned. Yes, Ned knows much about those final days. Perhaps too much. After Varys glides from the chamber, Robert summons his hand. Ned arrives within the hour, still dusty from the training yard where he has been working with young knights. His grey eyes take in Robert's agitated state with concern. You sent for me? Sit, Ned. We need to talk about old times. Robert pours wine for both of them, though the sun has barely cleared the horizon. Tell me about the Tower of Joy. Ned's face goes carefully blank. Robert, that was 17 years ago. Why dredge up such painful memories? Because the past has a way of reaching forward to grip the present by the throat. Robert settles into his chair, studying his oldest friend's reactions. News has come from across the narrow sea. Daenerys Targaryen has married a Dothraki warlord. 40,000 screamers, Ned. All it would take is one ship, one madman, with enough gold to hire passage for a handful of them. Daenerys is just a girl. She poses no threat. She's a Targaryen girl, and that makes her more dangerous than all of Tywin's armies combined. Robert's voice rises with old fury. The small folk still whisper about the dragons. Ned, they remember when Targaryens ruled with fire and blood. Give them a banner to rally behind, a name that promises a return to the old days. The dragons are dead, Robert, have been for over a century. Are they? Robert leans forward, his eyes boring into Ned's. Tell me about the Tower of Joy again. Tell me about Lyanna. Ned's jaw tightens. I've told you everything there is to tell. Have you? 3 of the finest knights who ever lived were guarding that tower. The Sword of the Morning himself stood watch. Why, Ned? Why waste such men on a dying girl unless she held something precious? They were loyal to Rhaegar. They followed their prince's last commands. Commands to guard what? A body? Robert's voice drops to a dangerous whisper. Or something else? Someone else? The silence stretches between them like a drawn bowstring. Ned stares into his wine cup, as if seeking answers in its depths. When he finally speaks, his voice is carefully measured. Lyanna was dying when we found her. Fever from the birthing bed. There was nothing to save, nothing to guard, except her final moments. The birthing bed. Robert repeats the words slowly. She had a child. A stillborn daughter. The fever took them both. Robert studies his friend's face, searching for tells he has learned to read over 20 years of friendship. The way Ned's eyes avoid his gaze, the slight tension in his shoulders, the careful precision of his words. A daughter. And what became of this stillborn child? We buried her beside her mother in the crypts of Winterfell. She rests there still. The lie hangs in the air between them. Robert can taste it, bitter as wormwood. Ned Stark, the most honest man in the 7 kingdoms, is lying to his face. But why? What secret from the Tower of Joy could be worth deceiving his king and oldest friend? Strange, Robert muses, swirling the wine in his cup. I've never seen this grave you speak of. In all my visits to Winterfell, you've never shown me where my beloved's child lies buried. Ned's face has gone pale. The crypts are... It's a private place, sacred to my family. I am your king, Ned, and I was Lyanna's betrothed. Surely that grants me the right to pay my respects to her child? Of course, Your Grace. The next time you visit Winterfell? Robert waves the offer aside. No need. I think I'll send someone else. Perhaps Sir Jorah Mormont. He knows the North well, knows where such graves might be found. The threat hangs unspoken in the air. If there is no grave, if there was no stillborn daughter, then what became of Lyanna's child? And more importantly, why has Ned lied about it for 17 years? Meanwhile, word spreads through the Red Keep that the king has called for his small council. Within the hour, the chamber fills with the realm's most powerful men. Ned takes his seat as Hand, still shaken from his conversation with Robert. Varys glides in like a ghost, followed by Grand Maester Pycelle, with his chain of office jangling. Peter Baelish arrives last, his cat's smile firmly in place. My lords, Robert begins without preamble. We face threats from across the narrow sea. The Targaryen girl has married herself to a savage warlord. 40,000 Dothraki screamers could cross at any time. Surely the girl poses little threat, Pycelle ventures. The Dothraki fear salt water more than steel. They have never crossed to Westeros. They've never had a dragon to lead them before. Robert's fist crashes down on the table. I want her dead. I want every Targaryen pretender hunted down and butchered like the dogs they are. Baelish leans forward with interest. An elimination, Your Grace? Such things can be arranged, though the cost. Hang the cost. The Iron Throne has debts aplenty already. What's one more in exchange for peace? And if she has already quickened with child? Varys asks quietly. A Targaryen child with Dothraki blood might prove even more dangerous than its mother. The question sends a chill through the chamber. Robert's face darkens like a storm cloud. Then we kill the child too. I will not have dragon spawn threatening my throne. Ned's chair scrapes against stone as he stands abruptly. Robert, you cannot mean to violence children. What has become of your honor? Honor? Robert laughs, but there is no humor in the sound. Honor died at the Trident with Rhaegar Targaryen. This is about survival, Ned. The survival of my dynasty, my kingdom, my people. Your people would be better served by just rule than by royal assassins. Justice and violence are oft the same thing, only separated by a crown. Robert's eyes blaze with fury. The girl dies, Ned. That is final. Ned stares at his king for a long moment, then turns and strides from the chamber without another word. Robert watches him go with narrowed eyes. Another lie to add to the collection. Ned's righteousness rings hollow when set against his deception about Lyanna's child. After the council disperses, Robert remains in the chamber with Varys. The eunuch's pale eyes glitter with interest as he watches the king brood over wine. Your Grace seems troubled by Lord Stark's reaction. Ned has developed a soft heart in his old age. He sees children where I see enemies. Perhaps Lord Stark knows something about Targaryen children that makes him reluctant to see them harmed. Robert's head snaps up. What do you mean? Varys's smile is enigmatic. Only that the Hand served in the final days of the rebellion. He saw much, heard much. The Tower of Joy, for instance. Such a mysterious place, don't you think? What secrets might such towers hide? If you have something to say, Varys, say it plainly. I merely observe that Ned Stark returned from Dawn with more than victory, Your Grace. He returned with a babe. A bastard, he claimed, born of some tavern wench or fisherman's daughter. Varys pauses, studying Robert's reaction. Strange how the boy's age matches so precisely with the timing of Prince Rhaegar's death. The words hit Robert like a physical blow. His wine cup slips from nerveless fingers, shattering against the stone floor. Jon Snow, Ned's bastard son. The boy with the same dark hair as the Starks, but something else in his features. Something that had always seemed familiar, but just beyond recognition. Jon Snow, Robert whispers. Indeed, Your Grace. A most interesting young man. I understand he grows quite tall, quite comely. The ladies of Winterfell speak highly of his noble bearing. Varys's voice is innocent as spring water, but his eyes gleam with satisfaction. One might almost say he has a princely look about him. Robert's mind races through memories, connecting pieces of a puzzle 17 years in the making. Jon's age, his appearance, the way Catelyn Stark looked at him with such hatred, the way Ned refused to speak of the boy's mother, even in his cups. Lyanna, he breathes, such a beautiful woman by all accounts, and Prince Rhaegar was said to be quite taken with her beauty. Varys tilts his head. One wonders what might have transpired between them in that tower, what fruit their union might have borne. The truth crashes over Robert like a tide of ice and fire. Jon Snow is not Ned's bastard. He is Lyanna's son, Rhaegar's son, a Targaryen prince hidden in plain sight under the protection of the most honorable man in the Seven Kingdoms. That scheming, honorable fool, Robert snarls. He's been hiding a dragon in his house for 17 years. It would seem so, Your Grace, though perhaps Lord Stark believed he was protecting the realm from further bloodshed. The boy has been raised as a bastard, after all. No threat to anyone. Robert stands so violently that his chair topples backward. No threat? He's Rhaegar Targaryen's son. Every drop of royal blood in his veins is a knife pointed at my throat. Indeed, Your Grace. Most troubling. Varys bows low. Though I trust Your Grace will handle this revelation with appropriate wisdom. Robert paces the chamber like a maddened bull, his mind churning with rage and betrayal. Ned has lied to him for 17 years, harbored a Targaryen prince under his roof while sitting at Robert's table, drinking his wine, accepting his trust. Send a raven north, Robert commands. I want Jon Snow brought to King's Landing, immediately. Of course, Your Grace. And when he arrives? Robert's smile is cold as winter. When he arrives, we'll see just how much Targaryen fire burns in Lyanna's son. Outside the chamber windows, storm clouds gather over Blackwater Bay, promising lightning and thunder to come. In the Red Keep's raven's roost, black wings prepare to carry words that will shatter the peace of the north and bring dragonfire to the halls of Winterfell. The Game of Thrones has claimed another player, and Jon Snow doesn't even know he's begun to play. The clash of steel rings through the Red Keep's training yard as Ser Jaime Lannister dances between practice dummies with fluid grace. His golden hair catches the morning sunlight like spun silk, and sweat gleams on his handsome face as he works through complex sword forms. The Kingsguard's white cloak flows behind him, like wings as he spins and strikes with deadly precision. Robert Baratheon watches from the gallery above, his massive hands gripping the stone rail until his knuckles show white. 3 days have passed since his revelation about the children, 3 days of careful planning and growing rage. Now the time has come for direct action. "Jaime!" Robert calls down, his voice carrying across the yard like thunder. A word. The Golden Knight looks up, his green eyes reflecting mild curiosity. He sheathes his practice sword and climbs the steps to the gallery with easy confidence. Several other knights and squires drift away, sensing the tension that crackles in the air like lightning before a storm. Your Grace, I trust you're feeling better after your hunting mishap? Much better, thanks to you. Robert's smile is cold as winter. Amazing how clearly a man can think when he's not being poisoned with strong wine by treacherous squires. Jaime's expression doesn't change, but Robert catches the slight tightening around his eyes. I'm not sure I follow, Your Grace. Don't you? Let me be clearer then. Robert steps closer, using his superior height to loom over the knight. I know about you and Cersei. I know about the children. I know about everything. The mask finally slips from Jaime's face, revealing something cold and dangerous beneath the golden beauty. His hand moves instinctively toward his sword hilt before stopping. Interesting accusations from a drunken king who sees enemies in every shadow. Careful, Kingslayer. That's treason you're speaking. Jaime's laugh is sharp as broken glass. Treason? From the man who killed Prince Aegon and Princess Rhaenys? From the man who had Elia Martell's blood on his hands? He steps closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You want to speak of treason, Robert? Let's speak of what you did to children barely older than toddlers. Robert's hand moves to his own sword, but Jaime is faster. The Golden Knight's blade whispers from its sheath, the point coming to rest against Robert's throat before the king can draw steel. I wouldn't, Jaime says softly. The Red Cloaks are loyal to the Queen, not to a fat drunk who plays at being king. For a moment, they stand frozen in tableau, king and knight, predator and prey, though which is which remains unclear. Then footsteps echo across the training yard, and both men step back as Ned Stark approaches with Jon Snow at his side. Robert's breath catches as he sees the boy up close for the first time in years. Jon has grown tall and lean, with the wolf-grey eyes of the Starks, but something else in the set of his features. Something Robert recognizes now that he knows what to look for. Your Grace, Ned says carefully, noting the tension between Robert and Jaime. Jon has arrived, as you commanded. Jon bows low, his dark hair falling across his face. Your Grace, you summoned me. Robert studies the boy with new eyes, cataloguing every detail. The high cheekbones that could be Stark or Targaryen, the elegant hands that grip a sword, hilt with natural grace. The way he holds himself with unconscious nobility despite his bastard status. Rise, boy. Let me look at you. Robert circles Jon like a wolf examining prey. You've grown since last I saw you. What are you now? 14 years? Yes, Your Grace. 14. Robert's voice is thoughtful. The same age Rhaegar Targaryen was when he first took up arms. Remarkable resemblance in the bone structure, wouldn't you say, Jaime? The Kingslayer's eyes narrow dangerously. I wouldn't know, Your Grace. I try not to dwell on dead princes. Wise policy, though sometimes the past has a way of returning to haunt us. Robert's gaze never leaves Jon's face. Tell me, Jon Snow, what do you know of your mother? The question hangs in the air like a blade. Jon's face flushes with embarrassment, and Ned steps forward protectively. Robert, the boy doesn't need to. The boy will answer for himself. Robert's voice brooks no argument. Well, Jon, who was she? I don't know, Your Grace. My father has never spoken of her. Hasn't he? How interesting. Robert glances meaningfully at Ned, who has gone pale as fresh snow. Perhaps because there are some secrets too dangerous to share, some truths that could topple kingdoms. Jaime sheathes his sword with deliberate care. If Your Grace will excuse me, I have duties to attend to. Of course. Run along, Sir Jaime. Give my regards to your sister. The Golden Knight's jaw tightens, but he bows stiffly and strides from the training yard. Robert watches him go with satisfaction before turning back to Jon and Ned. Walk with me, both of you. There's much we need to discuss. Meanwhile, in the Queen's chambers, Cersei paces like a caged lioness, while her handmaids cower in corners. Word of Robert's confrontation with Jaime has already reached her ears, carried by servants who know where their true loyalty lies. The game has moved beyond subtlety now, beyond careful maneuvering in shadows. Send for my uncle, she commands. Tell Sir Kevan I have need of his counsel, and summon Grand Maester Pycelle. We have ravens to send. Within the hour, Sir Kevan Lannister sits across from his niece, his weathered face grave with concern. Jaime tells me Robert knows. About the children, about everything. Robert suspects, but suspicion is not proof, and accusations are not convictions. Cersei's green eyes burn with determination. We still have allies, Uncle. Lords who fear what Stannis Baratheon would do as king. Houses that profit from our patronage. And if Robert moves against us openly, then we move first. Cersei produces a scroll sealed with the Lion of Lannister. Father has already begun calling the banners. 20,000 swords will march from the Westerlands within the fortnight. Meanwhile, our friends in the capital prepare for what must come." Kevin reads the letter, his face growing grimmer with each line. Civil war, Cersei. Blood in the streets, cities burned, thousands dead. Is the crown worth such a price? The crown is everything. Without it, we are nothing but rich merchants with pretensions above our station. Cersei moves to the window, staring out at the city below. Joffrey is the rightful king. My son, Jaime's son, born to rule as surely as any Baratheon whelp. I will not see him cast aside for Robert's bastards and drunken rage. That evening, the great hall fills with the sound of conversation and clinking wine cups as the royal family gathers for dinner. Robert sits at the head of the high table, with Cersei at his right hand and the children arrayed beside her. Jon Snow has been given a place of honor to Robert's left, much to the obvious displeasure of Prince Joffrey. "I don't understand why a bastard sits at the high table," Joffrey says, loudly enough for half the hall to hear. "Surely there are more appropriate places for his kind." The hall falls silent. Robert's face darkens like a storm cloud, and his massive fist crashes down on the table hard enough to make the wine cups jump. "The bastard sits where I place him, boy, and you'll show him the respect due to a guest in my hall. But father, he's just a Snow, a northern bastard with no name, no lands, no—" Robert's hand moves so fast that Joffrey doesn't see the slap coming. The crack echoes through the silent hall as the prince's head snaps to the side. Cersei gasps, half rising from her chair. "Robert, how dare you strike my son?" "Your son?" Robert's voice is deadly quiet. "Is he, Cersei? Are you quite certain of that?" The question hangs in the air like poison. Every eye in the hall turns toward the royal family, sensing drama, but not understanding its nature. Cersei's face has gone white with fury, but she forces herself to sit back down. "I think the wine has addled your wits, husband." Has it? Or has it finally cleared them? Robert turns his attention back to Jon, his expression softening noticeably. "Tell me, Jon, what do you make of the capital? Different from the north, I'd wager." Jon glances uncertainly between the king and queen before answering. "Very different, Your Grace. Everything seems larger, more complicated. Complicated indeed, full of secrets and lies, hidden truths and bastards who might be more than they appear." Robert raises his wine cup in a mock toast. "To hidden truths, Jon Snow. May they finally see the light." The toast is echoed reluctantly throughout the hall, but the tension remains thick as smoke. Joffrey nurses his reddening cheek while shooting venomous looks at Jon. Cersei sits rigid as a statue, her hands clenched in her lap. Only Robert seems relaxed, though his eyes never stop moving, cataloguing reactions and filing away information. "You know," Robert says conversationally, "I've been thinking about legitimization lately. The power of kings to raise bastards to full noble status. Fascinating concept, don't you think?" The words hit Cersei like physical blows. She understands the threat immediately. If Robert legitimizes Jon Snow and names him heir, Joffrey's claim becomes worthless. Everything she has planned, everything she has sacrificed, would crumble to dust. "Surely such discussions are premature," she manages through gritted teeth. "You have 3 healthy children to carry on your line." "Do I?" Robert's smile is sharp as a blade. "How can any man be certain of his children's parentage? Blood can be such a tricky thing. Take Jon here, bastard born, yet he carries himself like a prince, while others—" His gaze falls meaningfully on Joffrey. "Others have the look of spoiled merchants. Sons, all gold and no steel beneath." The insult is clear enough that even young Tommen seems to understand it. The boy shrinks back in his chair while Myrcella stares wide-eyed at the adults around the table. Joffrey's face flushes crimson with rage and humiliation. "I am a prince of the blood. I am your heir." "Are you?" Robert leans forward, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "Prove it, boy. Show me one drop of Baratheon fire in your veins. Show me the strength that built this dynasty. Joffrey's hand moves toward the eating knife at his belt, but Jon Snow is faster. The bastard's hand closes over Joffrey's wrist with surprising strength, preventing the boy from drawing steel. "Peace, your grace," Jon says quietly. "This is not the place for such demonstrations." Robert's eyes light up with approval. "Well spoken, Jon. You show wisdom beyond your years. And strength." His gaze moves meaningfully to where Jon's hand still restrains Joffrey. The strength of kings, one might say. Cersei has had enough. She rises from her chair with fluid grace, her golden hair catching the torchlight like a crown. "If your grace will excuse me, I find I have lost my appetite. The company has grown distasteful. Running away, my queen. How unlike a lioness." Cersei's green eyes blaze with fury, but she holds her tongue. With a stiff curtsy that somehow manages to be insulting, she sweeps from the hall. Her children follow like ducklings, leaving Robert alone with Jon and the assembled lords. "Freedom at last," Robert declares, raising his cup again. "To honest conversation and clear wine, unmuddied by lies and poison." This time, the toast is answered with more enthusiasm. The lords sense that something significant has occurred, though few understand the full implications. Jon sits uncomfortably beside the king, clearly overwhelmed by the evening's events. "Your grace," he ventures quietly. "Perhaps I should retire as well. I fear my presence has caused offense." "Your presence has illuminated truth, Jon Snow. That's a gift rarer than gold and more precious than crowns." Robert's hand falls on the boy's shoulder like a benediction. "Stay. There's much you need to learn about the Game of Thrones, and much the realm needs to learn about you." Outside the great hall, Cersei strides through corridors with violence in her heart. The gauntlet has been thrown down, the battle lines drawn. Robert means to destroy her children and elevate his bastard nephew in their place. But she is Tywin Lannister's daughter, and she will not go gentle into that good night. The Queen's ravens will fly before dawn, carrying word to allies and instructions to agents. If Robert wants war, she will give him war. But she will choose the time and place of battle, and when the dust settles, it will be her son who sits the Iron Throne. The Game of Thrones has entered its most dangerous phase, where kings and queens move like pieces across a board painted red with blood. And in the center of it all sits a bastard boy who doesn't yet know that he holds the power to topple kingdoms or remake the world. The dragons are stirring, and winter is coming to King's Landing. The King's Road stretches before them, like a grey ribbon unrolling toward the north, flanked by ancient trees that whisper secrets in the autumn wind. Robert Baratheon rides beside Ned Stark at the head of a column of 50 mounted men, their banners snapping in the crisp air. Behind them, Jon Snow keeps pace on a sturdy northern Garon, his dark hair streaming beneath a simple leather cap. 3 days have passed since they left King's Landing, ostensibly to secure northern support against the Lannister threat. In truth, Robert needed space to think, distance from Cersei's poisonous presence and the suffocating intrigue of the Red Keep. Out here on the open road, with honest dirt beneath their horses' hooves and clean air in their lungs, perhaps they can finally speak truths that have festered in darkness for 17 years. "You're brooding again," Ned observes, glancing at his king's troubled face. "The same look you wore before the Battle of the Bells." Robert shifts in his saddle, leather creaking. "I'm thinking, Ned. Dangerous habit for a king, or so my queen tells me." His laugh is bitter as winter ale. "Though I suppose she's not my queen anymore, is she? Not truly. Not when her children call another man father." "Robert." "No." Robert raises a hand to forestall his friend's words. "We've danced around this long enough. The boy rides with us, close enough to hear if we raise our voices. Time we settled accounts, you and I." Ned's grey eyes dart toward the column behind them, where Jon rides among the guards with easy grace. The boy has grown quiet since leaving the capital, sensing the tension between the two men who have shaped his life. "What accounts?" The account of a promise made 17 years ago. The account of a sister's dying wish. The account of a bastard who might not be a bastard at all. Robert's voice drops to a dangerous whisper. Tell me about the Tower of Joy, Ned. Tell me everything. The color drains from Ned's face. For a moment, he looks older than his years, weighted down by secrets that have grown heavier with each passing season. I've told you what happened. Lyanna died of fever. And we buried... Lies. Robert's voice cracks like a whip, causing several nearby guards to glance nervously in their direction. 17 years of lies, Ned. 17 years of watching you flinch every time someone mentions the boy's mother. 17 years of wondering why the most honorable man in the 7 kingdoms won't meet his king's eyes when they speak of bastards and brothels. Ned pulls his horse to a halt, forcing Robert to do the same. The column continues past them, guards and servants giving the 2 lords a wide berth. Only Jon hesitates, looking back with concern before spurring his mount to catch up with the others. We should make camp, Ned says quietly. The men are tired and the horses need rest. The men can wait. This conversation cannot. Robert's blue eyes burn with determination. You will tell me, Ned. Here, now, under the open sky where no spies can listen and no ravens can carry tales. You will tell me what happened at the Tower of Joy, or by all the gods old and new, our friendship ends here. For a long moment, they stare at each other in silence. The wind sighs through the trees around them, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and distant wood smoke. Finally, Ned closes his eyes and speaks, his voice barely above a whisper. She was dying when we found her. That much was true. He opens his eyes, and Robert sees tears gleaming there like silver coins. But not from fever, from childbirth, from bringing Rhaegar's son into the world. The words hit Robert like a physical blow. He sways in his saddle, gripping his reins so tightly that his knuckles turn white. Rhaegar's son, he repeats numbly. She made me promise, Robert. Promise to protect the child, to keep him safe from your wrath. She knew what you would do if you learned the truth. What you did to Egon and Rhaenys. Robert's mind races backward through the years, seeing Jon Snow's face with new clarity. The boy's features had always seemed familiar, but he had attributed it to Stark blood. Now he sees what he should have recognized from the beginning, the high cheekbones of Rhaegar Targaryen, the elegant hands that grip a sword with natural grace, the unconscious nobility that marks true princes, the boy I've watched grow up, the boy I've come to. Robert's voice breaks. He's Rhaegar's son, the Dragon Prince's heir. And Lyanna's son, Ned says urgently. Your nephew, Robert, your sister's child. She loved him with her dying breath, made me swear to protect him above all else. Robert swings down from his horse with violent motion, striding to the edge of the road where ancient oaks tower overhead. He slams his fist against the nearest trunk, bark scraping against his knuckles as blood wells from the cuts. Rhaegar! He snarls. That silver-haired bastard reaches out from the grave to mock me. Even dead, he wins. Even dead, he has a son while mine are. He cannot finish the thought. Ned dismounts and follows, his hand resting on his sword hilt, though he makes no move to draw steel. Robert, listen to me. Jon is not Rhaegar. He was raised as a Stark, taught northern values, northern honor. Whatever blood flows in his veins, he is more your nephew than any Targaryen prince. Is he? Robert turns, his face twisted with anguish. Tell me, Ned. Tell me about that day. Tell me how Lyanna died, defending the man who supposedly kidnapped and dishonored her. Ned's shoulders slump in defeat. The weight of 17 years of secrecy seems to crush down upon him like a mountain of stone. She wasn't kidnapped, he admits quietly. Lyanna went willingly. She loved Rhaegar, and he loved her. They were married in secret before a heart tree, wed in the sight of the old gods. The confession hangs between them like a blade. Robert staggers as if he has been struck, his face cycling through rage, grief, and something that might be understanding. "Married," he whispers. "She married the dragon prince." She was 17, Robert. Young and romantic, and convinced that love could conquer duty. Rhaegar promised her a song, and she followed him into legend. Ned's voice grows distant, lost in memories of a sister long dead. By the time the war began, she was already with child. By the time it ended, she was dying in a tower in Dawn, giving birth to a prince who would never know his father. Robert's laugh is hollow as a broken bell, and you've hidden him in plain sight ever since, raised him as your bastard to keep him safe from my rage. From anyone who might use him as a weapon against you, from lords who would see Targaryen blood as a banner to rally behind, from those who would crown him king whether he wanted it or not. Robert paces among the trees, his mind churning like a storm-tossed sea. Everything he thought he knew has crumbled to dust. The boy he has come to respect, the young man who showed wisdom and restraint at yesterday's dinner, carries the blood of his greatest enemy, but also the blood of his beloved sister. "What was his name?" Robert asks suddenly. "His birth name before you called him Snow?" Ned hesitates, then speaks the words that have been locked in his heart for 17 years. Aegon. Rhaegar named him Aegon Targaryen, 6th of his name. Aegon. Robert tastes the name like wine, bitter and sweet together. Another Aegon, as if one dead prince wasn't enough. Lyanna called him her little dragon, said he had fire in his eyes from the moment of birth. A ghost of a smile crosses Ned's weathered face. She made me promise to tell him about her someday, when he was old enough to understand. About her love for his father, about the choice she made. And have you? Have you told him? No. Ned's voice is heavy with regret. I hoped he could live as Jon Snow forever, safe in his bastard's obscurity, free from the weight of crowns and the hunger of those who would use him. Robert stops pacing and turns to face his oldest friend. But that dream is over now, isn't it? Cersei knows something is amiss. She's already moving against us, calling banners and gathering swords. The realm will tear itself apart, and in that chaos, every secret will be dragged into the light. Perhaps, but we can still protect him, Robert. Send him to the wall or across the narrow sea, somewhere beyond the reach of those who would use his blood for their own ends. Run? Robert's voice rises with newfound strength. Hide him away like a shameful secret while pretenders and bastards fight over my throne? He shakes his head firmly. No, Ned. The boy is Lyanna's son. My nephew. The last living piece of the sister I loved more than my own life. Robert, what are you saying? I'm saying the lies end now. The hiding ends now. Robert's blue eyes blaze with sudden purpose. I will legitimize him, not as Jon Snow, but as Jon Targaryen, Prince Jon of House Targaryen, true-born son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, my nephew and heir. Ned pales as if he has been struck. Robert, you cannot mean it. The realm will never accept a Targaryen prince as your heir. The lords who followed you to victory will see it as betrayal. Let them see it as justice, as a king acknowledging the truth of his sister's choice. Robert's voice grows stronger with each word. You said yourself that Jon is more Stark than Targaryen in his heart. Let him prove it. Let him show the realm what kind of king a dragon raised by wolves might be. And if he refuses? If he wants no part of crowns and thrones? Robert's smile is sad and knowing. Then he is truly Lyanna's son, and worthy of whatever choice he makes. But I will give him that choice, Ned. I will not let him live his life, believing himself a bastard, when he is a prince of the blood. The sound of approaching hoofbeats interrupts their conversation. Jon Snow rides toward them, his face creased with concern. "My lords," he calls out. The men grow restless, and the daylight fades. "Shall we make camp for the night?" Robert and Ned exchange a long look, 17 years of secrets and lies hanging between them. Then Robert nods slowly. "Yes, Jon. We'll make camp." He pauses, studying the boy's face with new eyes. "There's much we need to discuss, much you need to know about your heritage." Confusion flickers across Jon's features, but he bows respectfully. "Of course, Your Grace. Whatever you wish to tell me." As the boy rides back to organize the camp, Robert places a heavy hand on Ned's shoulder. "Tonight, old friend. Tonight we tell him the truth. All of it. And if it destroys him? If learning about his parents' love destroys the man we've helped shape?" Robert watches Jon directing the guards with quiet authority, seeing Lyanna's grace in every gesture and Rhaegar's natural nobility in the way men instinctively follow his lead. "Then we'll help him put the pieces back together, as family should." Robert's voice is soft with wonder. "Lyanna's boy, Ned. After all these years, we finally have her boy back." Meanwhile, far to the south, ravens wing through the gathering dusk toward Casterly Rock and other seats of Lannister power. Cersei's messages have found their mark, and the wheels of war begin to turn with grinding inevitability. But here on the King's Road, under stars that witnessed Lyanna Stark's birth and death, truth prepares to shine brighter than any golden lion. The Dragon Prince has been hidden long enough. Tonight, Jon Snow will die, and Aegon Targaryen will be reborn beneath the northern sky. The realm will tremble at the revelation, but Robert no longer cares about the realm's comfort. He has a nephew to acknowledge, and a sister's memory to honor. Everything else can burn. The great hall of Winterfell glows with the warmth of 100 candles, their light dancing off the ancient stone walls where direwolf banners hang like sleeping guardians. Jon Snow sits across from Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark at a small table, the remains of their evening meal forgotten between them. The king's guards stand watch at the doors, ensuring their privacy, while the rest of the castle settles into the quiet rhythms of night. Jon's hands rest uneasily on the wooden table, his grey eyes moving between the two men who have summoned him here. Something in their bearing speaks of momentous things, of words that will change the world once spoken. The silence stretches like a bowstring drawn taut. "Jon," Robert begins, his voice unusually gentle. "What I'm about to tell you will shake the very foundations of who you believe yourself to be. But it is truth, and you deserve to know it." The boy straightens in his chair, squaring his shoulders as he has been taught. "I am ready, Your Grace." "Are you?" Ned asks quietly. "Are any of us ever ready to learn that our entire life has been built upon a lie meant to protect us?" Jon's brow furrows with confusion. "My Lord Father, I don't understand." "That's the first thing we need to address," Robert says, leaning forward. "Ned Stark is not your father, Jon. He never was." The words hit like a hammer blow. Jon's face goes white, and he grips the edge of the table as if the world has suddenly tilted beneath him. Not my father? But then who?" "Your father was Prince Rhaegar Targaryen," Ned says, his voice heavy with 17 years of secrecy. "And your mother was Lyanna Stark, my sister, Robert's betrothed." Jon's mouth opens and closes without sound. He stares at the two men as if they have begun speaking in a foreign tongue. When words finally come, they emerge as a broken whisper. "Targaryen. You're saying I'm a Targaryen." "Not just any Targaryen," Robert says, his blue eyes intense. "You are the son of the last Dragon Prince, born in love at the Tower of Joy. Your birth name is Aegon Targaryen, 6th of his name." Jon lurches to his feet so violently that his chair crashes backward. He paces to the hearth, staring into the flames as if seeking answers in their dance. His hands shake as he runs them through his dark hair. This cannot be true. I'm a bastard. A Snow. I've never been anything more than... You've never been a bastard, Ned interrupts gently. Your parents were married before a heart tree in the sight of the old gods. You are true-born, Jon. A prince of the blood. A prince, Jon laughs, but there is no humor in the sound. A prince who has spent 14 years believing himself the shameful reminder of his fathers, of Lord Stark's moment of weakness. He turns to face Ned, his grey eyes burning with sudden fury. How could you let me believe that? How could you let me think I was... Because it kept you alive, Robert says, before Ned can respond. Because if the truth had come to light, you would have been killed before your first name day. I would have killed you myself, in my rage and grief over Lyanna's death. The confession hangs in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Jon stares at Robert with wide eyes, seeing for the first time the man who would have been his executioner. You would have ended me. A babe. I was mad with grief and fury. Rhaegar had taken Lyanna from me, or so I believed. If I had known she bore him a son... Robert's voice trails off, weighted with shame. Yes, Jon. I would have killed you, and thought myself justified. Jon sinks into another chair, his legs no longer able to support him. The world he has known for 14 years crumbles around him like a castle built of sand. And now? Now that you know the truth? Robert's expression softens, and for a moment Jon sees not the fearsome king, but the man who loved Lyanna Stark with all his heart. Now I see Lyanna's son, my nephew, the last living piece of the woman I loved more than my own life. Robert reaches across the table and places his large hand over Jon's trembling one. Now I see a young man worthy of the crown I wear, worthy of the throne his blood grants him right to claim. Crown? Jon's voice cracks like a boy's, though he stands on the threshold of manhood. Your Grace, I want no crown. I never have. I'm a bastard from Winterfell, not... You are Aegon Targaryen, and you will never call yourself bastard again. Robert's voice carries the authority of kingship. Tomorrow, before the heart tree in Winterfell's Godswood, I will legitimize you officially. You will take the name Targaryen and the titles that are your birthright. Jon stares at him in horror. The realm will never accept a Targaryen prince. They followed you to victory specifically to rid themselves of the Dragon Kings. The realm will accept what their king commands, Robert says firmly, and if they do not, they will learn to fear the consequences of defying the Iron Throne. Meanwhile, in the Lord Solar, Catelyn Stark sits in stunned silence as Maester Luwin reads the raven message that has arrived from King's Landing. The parchment trembles in the old man's weathered hands as he finishes the dire warnings about Lannister movements and gathering armies. War is coming, my lady, Luwin says quietly. Queen Cersei has called her banners. The realm bleeds. Yes, Catelyn whispers, but her mind is not on wars or queens. It dwells instead on the conversation she overheard earlier when she thought to bring wine to the king and her husband. Jon Snow is not Ned's bastard. Jon Snow is Rhaegar Targaryen's son. The knowledge changes everything. 17 years of resentment, 17 years of looking at the boy and seeing her husband's betrayal, 17 years of treating an innocent child as the embodiment of shame, all built upon a lie meant to protect him. A soft knock at the solar door interrupts her brooding. Come, she calls, and Sansa enters with Arya close behind. Her daughters' faces are bright with curiosity and excitement. Mother, Sansa says, curtsying prettily. The servants say the king has legitimized Jon. They say he's to be a prince now. Is it true? Catelyn looks at her eldest daughter, seeing Tully colouring and Stark nobility in equal measure. How does one explain to an 11-year-old that her bastard half-brother is actually her cousin, and now stands higher in the royal succession than any of them ever dreamed? It's true, she says simply. Jon is... he is not what we believed him to be. A prince! Arya practically bounces with excitement. Jon is going to be a prince. Does that mean he'll have a crown? Will he live in a castle even bigger than Winterfell? Stupid, Sansa says with the casual cruelty of childhood. He'll probably have to go to King's Landing now. Princes don't live in the north. The casual dismissal cuts Catelyn more deeply than she expected. After 17 years of treating Jon as an outsider, the thought of losing him to the capital fills her with unexpected grief. Perhaps, she says carefully, we should reserve judgment until we know more of the king's plans. Back in the Great Hall, Jon has lapsed into silence, staring at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. The revelation has shattered every certainty he possessed about himself, leaving him adrift in a sea of possibilities he never imagined. I don't know how to be a prince, he says finally. I barely know how to be a bastard. You'll learn, Robert says with surprising gentleness. I'll have Maesters teach you history, heraldry, the laws of the realm. You'll study with the finest tutors gold can buy. And if I refuse? If I choose to remain Jon Snow and ask for nothing more than a place in your service? Robert's smile is sad, but understanding. Then you would prove yourself worthy of the crown you refuse. But the choice is not yours alone to make, Jon. The realm has need of leaders, of men who understand honor and duty. The Lannisters have proven themselves unworthy. My legal children are bastards born of incest. You may be the only legitimate claimant left standing when the dust settles. Legitimate claimant. Jon tastes the words like wine, bitter and sweet together. Yesterday I dreamed of perhaps earning a knighthood through service. Today you speak of making me king. Today I speak of giving you the choice that was stolen from you at birth, Robert corrects. Whether you accept the crown or not is up to you, but you will know the truth of your heritage, and the realm will know it too. Ned has remained quiet throughout most of the exchange, letting Robert take the lead in explaining what they both helped hide. Now he speaks, his voice rough with emotion. Jon, I want you to know that I never regretted raising you as my son. Whatever name you choose to bear, whatever path you choose to walk, you will always be my boy. Always. The words break something inside Jon. Tears that he has held back since childhood spill down his cheeks as he looks at the man who sacrificed his honor to save him. Father, he whispers, the word carrying 17 years of love and gratitude. I know what it cost you to keep me safe, and I... His voice breaks entirely, and he cannot finish. Robert clears his throat roughly, moved despite himself by the display of genuine affection between the two. Well, sentiment aside, we have practical matters to address. The legitimization ceremony will take place tomorrow morning. After that, we'll need to discuss your education, your household, your future responsibilities. And Joffrey? Jon asks, wiping his eyes. What happens to the prince when you name me as your heir? Robert's expression darkens like a storm cloud. Joffrey Baratheon will face the consequences of his birth. He is no son of mine, no matter what name he bears. The implications hang heavy in the air. If Jon becomes Robert's heir, it means war with the Lannisters, war with those who would support Joffrey's claim. It means blood in the streets and fire in the fields. The realm will burn, Jon says quietly. The realm burns already, Robert replies. The question is whether it burns for truth or for lies, whether it burns to place a worthy king upon the throne or to maintain the corrupt dynasty of usurpers. Jon stands slowly, moving to the window where moonlight streams through the thick glass. Below, Winterfell's courtyard lies quiet and peaceful, but he knows that peace is an illusion. By accepting his true name, by claiming his birthright, he will shatter that peace forever. I need time to think, he says finally. It's too much to decide in one night. You have until tomorrow's ceremony, Robert says, standing as well. But Jon, remember this. You didn't choose to be born a Targaryen, but you can choose what kind of Targaryen to be. The realm has seen dragon kings who ruled through fear and madness. Perhaps it's time they saw one who rules through honor and justice. As the three of them prepare to part ways, Jon turns to face both men one last time. Will you tell the others? Robb, Bran, the girls? We'll tell the family in the morning, Ned says. They deserve to hear it from us, not from servants' gossip. Jon nods and moves toward the door, then pauses with his hand on the latch. Aegon Targaryen, he says, testing the name like a new sword. It sounds like someone else, entirely. Perhaps because it is, Robert says quietly. The question is whether you're ready to become him. Jon opens the door and steps into the corridor beyond, leaving behind Jon Snow forever. Tomorrow he will stand before the Heart Tree as one man and emerge as another. Tonight, he must decide what that transformation will mean for himself and for the realm that hangs in the balance. The young dragon has awakened at last, but whether he will breathe fire or frost remains to be seen. The great courtyard of Winterfell rings with the sound of steel on steel as Jon Targaryen dances through sword forms under the watchful eye of Ser Rodrik Cassel. The Master-at-Arms barks corrections and encouragement in equal measure, pushing the newly legitimized prince harder than he ever pushed the bastard Jon Snow. "Footwork!" Rodrik shouts, his grey beard bristling. "A prince who stumbles over his own feet is a dead prince. Again!" Jon wipes sweat from his brow and raises his practice sword. 5 days have passed since the ceremony at the Heart Tree. 5 days since he knelt as Jon Snow and rose as Jon Targaryen. The transformation still feels like wearing borrowed clothes, but the sword in his hand remains familiar. Steel does not care about names or titles. "Better," Rodrik grunts, as Jon completes a complex sequence of cuts and parries. "You fight with purpose now, not just skill. Good. A prince needs both." Meanwhile, hundreds of leagues to the south, Cersei Lannister paces the length of the Queen's chamber like a caged lioness. The raven from Winterfell lies crumpled on her desk, its message burned into her memory. Robert has legitimized Ned Stark's bastard as a Targaryen prince. Her children's claims grow more precarious with each passing hour. "Summon Grandmaster Pycelle," she commands her handmaid, "and tell Ser Jaime I have need of him. Immediately." The old Maester arrives first, his chains jingling as he shuffles into the chamber. His rheumy eyes take in Cersei's agitated state with practiced concern. "Your Grace, how may I serve?" "I need ravens sent. Urgent messages to Casterly Rock, Lannisport, and every bannerman who owes fealty to my father." Cersei's green eyes burn with determination. "Tell them the realm faces a crisis. Tell them a Targaryen pretender threatens the stability of the Seven Kingdoms." Pycelle's eyebrows rise nearly to his hairline. "A Targaryen, Your Grace? But surely all the dragon's spawn are dead or across the narrow sea." "Not all." Cersei produces another scroll, this one bearing Robert's own seal. "The king has lost his wits to grief and wine. He has legitimized a bastard boy, claiming him to be the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark." The Maester's face pales as he reads the proclamation. "This is most irregular, Your Grace. The political implications are civil war," Cersei snaps. "Unless we act swiftly to contain this madness, my father must know. Our bannermen must be prepared." As Pycelle shuffles away to his ravens, Jaime enters the chamber with his usual confident stride. But his green eyes are troubled, and his hand rests on his sword hilt with unconscious readiness. "Sister, you look as if the world is ending." "It might be." Cersei hands him the proclamation, watching his face change as he reads. "Robert means to name this bastard his heir. Everything we've worked for, everything we've sacrificed, all of it crumbles because of one foolish boy. Jaime crumples the parchment in his fist. Then we kill the boy. Simple enough. Is it? He's surrounded by Stark loyalists at Winterfell, protected by Robert himself, and ending him now would only confirm his importance. Cersei moves to the window, staring out at the sprawling city below. No, brother. We need a more subtle approach. Subtle is not my strength. Then perhaps it's time you developed new talents. Cersei turns back to face him, her expression calculating. How many of the Kingsguard can we count on when the moment comes? Jaime considers the question carefully. Ser Meryn and Ser Boros will follow whoever pays them best. Ser Preston might stay loyal to Robert out of honor. Ser Aris is a boy who dreams of knights and glory. And Ser Barristan, he shakes his head. The old man will die before he breaks his oaths. Then we must ensure the oaths are broken for him. Cersei's smile is cold as winter, or that he dies honorably in service to his king. Far to the west, Tywin Lannister sits in his solar at Casterly Rock, reading reports from across the realm with the methodical precision of a master strategist. The news from King's Landing troubles him more than he allows his face to show. A Targaryen restoration would mean the end of everything House Lannister has built. Sir Keevan, he calls, and his brother appears with prompt efficiency. How many swords can we muster within a fortnight? 20,000 from our own lands, perhaps 5,000 more from houses that owe us gold. Kevin's weathered face is grim with understanding. Are we calling the banners? Quietly. For training exercises officially, the harvest is complete, the men are idle. What better time for military drills? Tywin's cold eyes glitter with calculation. And send envoys to the Reach, the Westerlands, anywhere lords might remember the prosperity of recent years and fear the return of Targaryen madness. And if Robert moves against us directly, then we will be ready. Tywin stands, moving to a great map of Westeros that dominates one wall. His finger traces the roads between Winterfell and King's Landing. The king shows his hand too early. He should have consolidated power before making such proclamations. Now he gives us time to prepare. Meanwhile, at Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon reads his brother's summons with the same expression he might wear while examining a piece of mouldy bread. The Raven Scroll lies on his desk beside reports from his own spies, painting a picture of a realm sliding toward chaos. "Davos!" he calls, and the former smuggler appears at his side with quiet efficiency. "My lord." "Ready the fleet. Robert summons me to King's Landing, and I suspect we'll need every ship we can muster before this business is finished." Davos frowns, studying his lord's craggy face. "The legitimization of the Stark bastard troubles you?" "The bastard troubles me less than the timing." Stannis moves to his own window, staring out at the grey waters of Blackwater Bay. Robert acts from emotion, not strategy. If the boy truly is Rhaegar's son, legitimizing him creates as many problems as it solves. How so, my lord? Think, Davos. A Targaryen prince gives the realm's enemies a banner to rally behind. Every lord who chafes under Baratheon rule, every house that remembers the old kings fondly, every ambitious fool who thinks he can control a boy king. Stannis' jaw tightens. Robert may have just handed his enemies the perfect weapon. Back at Winterfell, Jon stumbles as Sir Roderick's practice sword cracks against his ribs. The Master-at-Arms shows no mercy, despite his royal blood, treating him as he would any young knight in training. "Dead," Roderick declares flatly. "A prince who lets his guard down is a body with a crown." Again. Jon nods, raising his sword once more. Around the training yard, other men pause in their own exercises to watch. Some show respect for his royal blood, others curiosity about the bastard-turned prince. A few watch with barely concealed resentment, remembering the boy who cleaned stables and mucked kennels. "You're thinking too much," Roderick observes as they circle each other. "A sword fight is not a chess game. Stop trying to plan 10 moves ahead and focus on the one that matters. The lesson applies to more than sword play, Jon realizes. Since his legitimization, he has been drowning in considerations of politics, inheritance, and the weight of royal blood. Perhaps it's time to focus on simpler things: steel, strength, and the protection of those he cares about. He attacks with renewed focus, driving Rodrik back across the yard with a series of precise cuts. For a moment, the old knight struggles to keep up with his student's sudden intensity. Then Rodrik's experience tells, and he traps Jon's blade with a clever bind that leaves the prince open to an ending thrust. "Better," Rodrik says, lowering his sword. "Much better. You fought like a prince just then, not like a boy pretending to be one." That evening, Robert summons his war council to Winterfell's great hall. The long table fills with northern lords who have answered his call: Umber, Mormont, Glover, and others whose houses have served the Starks for centuries. Their faces are grim as they study maps and reports from across the realm. "The Lannisters move," Lord Rosebolton reports, his pale eyes scanning a raven scroll. 20,000 swords gathering at Casterly Rock for training exercises. Tywin calls it preparation for the next campaign season. "Preparation for war, more like," growls Lord Umber. "The old lion doesn't muster his full strength for training." Robert nods grimly. "How stand our own forces, Ned?" 15,000 from the north, ready to march within days," Ned replies. "House Stark's bannermen remember their oaths. The question is whether we can count on support from other regions." "Stannis will come," Robert says with confidence. "He may be harder than Winter, but he's my brother. And Renly controls Storm's End and the loyalty of young lords who dream of glory." "And the others?" Lord Glover asks. "The Reach? The Vale? Dawn?" Robert's expression darkens. "We'll know soon enough. Ravens fly tonight to every great house, calling them to declare for their rightful king or be counted as traitors." Jon sits quietly at the table's foot, still uncomfortable with his place among such company. These are lords who have ruled their houses for decades, men whose words can raise armies and topple kingdoms. What wisdom can a 14-year-old bastard-turned-prince offer such men? "Your Grace," he ventures, earning the attention of every eye in the room. "Perhaps we should consider the common people in all this. They care little for bloodlines and legitimization. They want peace, prosperity, and justice, whichever side offers them those things most convincingly." "The boy speaks sense," Lord Mormont rumbles, his voice gravelly with age. "Wars are won by soldiers, but soldiers need reasons to fight and die. Give them a cause they can believe in." Robert studies Jon with approval. Well spoken. The prince learns quickly. He turns back to the assembled lords. "Spread word throughout the realm. This is not a war of conquest, but of justice. We fight to protect the innocent from Lannister gold and Lannister lies." As the war council disperses, Robert draws Jon aside for a private word. The king's face shows the weight of the decisions ahead, the terrible responsibility of leading a realm into civil war. "Second thoughts?" he asks quietly. Jon considers the question seriously. "Every day, Your Grace. But not about accepting my name or my blood. About whether I'm worthy of the trust you've placed in me. Worthiness is earned, not inherited. And you're earning yours with every decision, every lesson, every moment you choose duty over comfort." Robert's hand falls on Jon's shoulder. "Your mother would be proud of the man you're becoming." Outside Winterfell's walls, riders disappear into the night, carrying messages to every corner of the north. By dawn, ravens will fly south, bearing summons and ultimatums. The die is cast, the banners called, the realm divided. In the distance, thunder rumbles across the darkening sky, promising storms to come. The gathering war will test every alliance, every oath, every bond of blood and honor that holds the Seven Kingdoms together. And at the center of it all stands a 14-year-old prince who never asked for a crown but may soon find one thrust upon his head by the tides of history and the choices of better men than himself. The dragons stir, and the realm holds its breath. The dawn mist clings to the Blackwater as two armies face each other across the field south of King's Landing. Banners snap in the morning wind. The golden lion of Lannister on one side, the crowned stag of Baratheon on the other. Between them stretches a mile of muddy ground that will soon run red with blood. Tywin Lannister sits his destrier like a statue carved from granite, his crimson cloak flowing behind him as he surveys the enemy line. 20,000 Westermen stand at his back, their armor gleaming despite the grey sky. Knights and men-at-arms who have never known defeat under the old lion's command. "The Pretender King shows himself at last," Sir Kevan remarks, pointing toward the center of the enemy formation, where Robert's antlered helm catches the pale sunlight. "And brings his pet dragon with him," Tywin replies, his cold gaze finding the slight figure mounted beside Robert. Jon Targaryen wears simple mail and carries a long sword, looking every inch the young knight despite his royal blood. How fitting that both usurpers should die together. Across the field, Robert adjusts his war hammer and turns to address the men around him. 15,000 loyal troops stretch left and right. Northmen under Ned Stark's direwolf banner, Stormlanders who remember their oaths, and Crownlands levies who have chosen their king over Lannister gold. "Today we fight for justice," Robert's voice carries across the ranks. "We fight to protect the innocent from those who would buy the throne with lies and violence. Let them come with their golden armor and foreign sellswords. We'll show them what honest steel can do." A cheer rises from the assembled host, thousands of voices joining in defiant roar. Jon feels the sound wash over him like a physical force, stirring something primal in his chest. This is his first real battle, his first test of the dragon blood that flows in his veins. "Stay close to me, boy," Robert murmurs as the enemy begins to advance. "War is chaos, but chaos can be survived with good steel and better friends." Jon nods, drawing his sword with hands that barely tremble. The blade was forged in the smithies of Winterfell, but today it serves a Targaryen prince. Today it will taste Lannister blood, or be bathed in his own. The Lannister host moves forward like a red tide, their disciplined ranks maintaining perfect formation, even as they cross the rough ground. Tywin has placed his heavy cavalry on the flanks, his infantry in the center, and his archers just behind the main line. It is a formation that has broken armies across the Westerlands. "Archers!" Ned calls from the right flank, and 100 northern longbowmen draw their strings. Their arrows hiss through the morning air like angry wasps, finding gaps in Lannister armor and dropping men to the muddy earth. But the enemy comes on regardless, stepping over their fallen comrades without pause. The lines crash together with a sound like thunder. Shields splinter, spears break, and men scream as steel finds flesh. Jon urges his horse forward into the melee, his sword cutting down at a Lannister pikeman who thrusts at his mount's belly. The man falls with blood frothing from his mouth, and Jon realizes with shock that he has killed his first enemy. There is no time for reflection. A mounted knight with a lion-crested helm charges toward him, his lance aimed at Jon's heart. The young prince twists in his saddle, feeling the spear point scrape along his mail as he brings his sword around in a desperate cut. The blade finds the gap between helmet and gorget, and the knight topples from his saddle in a spray of crimson. "Well struck!" Robert bellows from nearby, his war hammer crushing skulls and shattering shields with each swing. "You fight like a king, boy!" The battle rages for an hour without clear advantage to either side. Men die and are replaced by others eager for glory or coin. The field becomes a defeat where banners fall and rise again, where brave men charge to their deaths and cowards flee screaming into the mist. Then the Lannister reserves enter the fight, fresh troops led by Ser Jaime himself. The Golden Knight rides a white destrier and carries a sword that seems to drink the light from the grey sky. His Kingsguard cloak streams behind him like a banner as he leads 100 heavy horse straight at Robert's position. "The Kingslayer comes for you," Ned shouts over the din of battle. "Fall back!" But Robert does not retreat. The king spurs his horse forward to meet Jaime's charge, his war hammer singing through the air as it smashes aside lesser knights like wheat before the scythe. The two champions collide in the center of the melee with a crash that echoes across the battlefield. Jaime's sword moves like quicksilver, seeking gaps in Robert's heavy armor. But the king fights with the fury of his youth restored, each blow of his hammer driving his opponent back. They circle each other, while lesser men give them space, recognizing that something greater than mere battle takes place here. "You killed my children's claim," Jaime snarls, his golden hair dark with sweat. "You destroyed everything I fought to build." "I saved the realm from your lies," Robert replies, parrying a thrust that would have opened his throat. "Your bastards were never worthy of the crown." Their weapons clash again and again, skill against strength, finesse against fury. But Robert has youth on his side now, youth and righteous anger, and the knowledge that he fights for truth. His hammer catches Jaime's sword in a binding that sends both weapons wide, then crashes against the knight's ribs with bone-shattering force. Jaime doubles over in his saddle, blood running from his mouth as his horse staggers. Robert raises his hammer for the ending blow, but a spear thrust from behind catches him in the shoulder and spins him around. A dozen Lannister knights have broken through the line, seeking to rescue their champion or die in the attempt. Jon sees the danger and drives his horse forward, cutting down the spearman before he can strike again. But more enemies press in from all sides, overwhelming the small group of loyalists around their king. For a moment, it seems that Robert will be dragged down by sheer numbers. Then horns sound across the water, deep and mournful and achingly familiar. Black ships appear through the morning mist, their sails emblazoned with the crowned stag of Dragonstone. Stannis Baratheon has arrived with the royal fleet, and his marines storm ashore with grim efficiency. "Stannis!" Robert roars with joy, his hammer sweeping 3 men from their saddles with a single blow. "I knew you'd come, brother." The arrival of fresh troops turns the tide decisively. Caught between Robert's anvil and Stannis's hammer, the Lannister host begins to crumble. Men throw down their weapons and flee toward the hills, while their officers struggle to maintain any semblance of order. Tywin Lannister watches his careful plans dissolve into chaos and makes the hardest decision of his long life. "Sound the retreat," he commands, his voice steady despite the disaster unfolding around him. We fall back to Harrenhal. The war is not over. The golden tide recedes as quickly as it came, leaving behind thousands of dead and wounded on the fierce field. Robert stands among the carnage, his hammer dripping crimson, his armor dented, but his spirit unbroken. Beside him, Jon leans on his sword and tries to comprehend what he has survived. "Your first battle," Robert says, clapping the young prince on the shoulder. "How do you feel?" Jon looks out over the field where ravens already gather to feast. "Sick," he admits. "And grateful to be alive? Good. That means you understand the cost." Robert's expression grows serious. Some men enjoy ending. Those are the ones you need to watch, because they're already lost to the darkness. Stannis approaches on foot, having left his ship to survey the battlefield personally. His lean face shows no emotion as he reports the losses. 3,000 Lannister dead against 800 loyalist casualties. A victory, but bought with good men's blood. "The old lion retreats but does not yield," Stannis observes. "He'll regroup at Harrenhal and call for aid from his bannermen. This war is far from over." "Let him call," Robert says grimly. "Let him gather every sword in the Westerlands. We've shown the realm that dragons can fight, that honor still means something in this corrupt age." Jon barely hears the exchange. His attention is fixed on a young Lannister knight lying nearby, little older than himself, staring sightlessly at the grey sky. The boy's surcoat bears the castle of some minor house, probably the younger son of a landed knight sent to win glory and gold. Instead, he found only death on a muddy field far from home. "He might have had a sister who loved him," Jon murmurs. a mother who prayed for his safe return. Aye, Ned agrees, having approached during the conversation with Stannis. That's the burden of command, Jon. Every man who dies under your banner becomes your responsibility, friend and foe alike. As the sun climbs toward noon, the grim work of victory begins. The wounded are tended, the dead are counted, and prisoners are sorted from body. Among the captured is Sir Adam Marbrand, one of Tywin's most trusted knights, who surrendered only when his horse was killed beneath him. Send him back to his master with a message, Robert commands. Tell Tywin Lannister that the rightful king offers terms. Surrender now, acknowledge the truth of his grandchildren's parentage, and I will allow him to take the Black. Continue this war, and I will destroy House Lannister, root and branch. The captured knight nods stiffly, understanding both the mercy and the threat. As he is led away to be released, Robert turns his attention to more pressing matters. The capital must be secured, the remaining Lannister loyalists rooted out, and preparations made for the next phase of the war. But for now, they have won a great victory. The Pretender Queen's forces are scattered, her children's false claim exposed before all the realm. King Robert I sits more securely on his throne, with a dragon prince at his side and honest steel in his hand. Jon Targaryen has tasted his first battle and emerged stronger for it. The boy who entered the fight may have died on that fierce field, replaced by a young man who understands the weight of crown and sword alike. The realm will have need of such men in the dark days ahead. As the victorious army begins the march back to King's Landing, ravens take flight, carrying news of the great victory. Soon every corner of the Seven Kingdoms will know that the usurper queen's cause bleeds, that the dragons have returned not as conquerors but as protectors. The war is far from over, but today belongs to truth, honor, and the young prince who fights to preserve both. Thunder rumbles in the distance, promising more storms to come. But for now the sun breaks through the clouds like a golden crown upon the field of victory. The great hall of Storm's End fills with the scent of honeyed wine and roasted fowl as Lord Renly Baratheon entertains an array of powerful guests. Representatives from House Tyrrell, House Hightower, and a dozen other reach houses crowd around the high table, their rich silks and golden jewelry gleaming in the torchlight. At the table's head, Renly holds court with the easy charm that has always been his greatest weapon. "My lords," Renly says, raising his goblet high, "too long has the realm suffered under the weight of lies and corruption. My brother offers truth, justice, and a return to honorable rule. What say you to joining our cause?" Lord Mace Tyrell, a portly man with roses embroidered on his doublet, leans forward with interest. The Reach remembers King Robert's victory at the Trident. We remember the prosperity that followed. But what assurance do we have that this war will not drag on for years, wounded our lands dry? "The assurance of quick victory," Renly replies confidently. "The Lannisters have already lost their first major battle. Tywin retreats to his strongholds, while Robert presses his advantage. Join us now, and share in the spoils of triumph. Wait, and you may find yourselves on the losing side of history." Old Lord Randall Tarley, whose stern face could curdle milk, speaks up from further down the table. The boy king names himself a Targaryen. The Reach remembers the Mad King's reign, remembers dragonfire and blood. How do we know this prince will not follow in his grandfather's footsteps? "Because he was raised by wolves, not dragons," Renly answers smoothly. Jon Targaryen learned honor from Ned Stark, learned duty from the harsh lessons of the North. He carries the blood of kings, but the heart of a protector. The assembled lords murmur among themselves, weighing the risks and rewards. Finally, Mace Tyrell stands and declares in his booming voice, "House Tyrell stands with House Baratheon. The Reach will answer the call." Meanwhile, 300 leagues to the north, the war takes a different shape along the banks of the Trident. Lord Edmure Tully paces the battlements of River Run, watching smoke rise from burning villages in the distance. Lannister raiders strike at will, burning crops and defeat small folk in revenge for the defeat at the Blackwater. "We cannot let this continue," Edmure declares to his assembled knights. "Our people suffer while we cower behind these walls." "And if we ride out, we play into Tywin's hands," his uncle Ser Brynden replies grimly. "He wants us to abandon our defenses, to chase his raiders into the open where his heavy horse can destroy us." "Then what do you propose? That we watch our lands burn?" Before Brynden can answer, horns sound from the gatehouse. A column of northern horse approaches under the direwolf banner of House Stark, led by a slight figure in gleaming mail. Jon Targaryen rides at the head of 500 mounted knights, his dark hair streaming in the wind like a war banner. "The Dragon Prince comes at last," Edmure mutters, relief and nervousness warring in his voice. "Perhaps now we can take the fight to the lions." Jon dismounts in Riverrun's courtyard with fluid grace, his movements betraying the confidence that comes from surviving his first real battle. He has grown in the week since the Blackwater, not just in skill but in presence. Men look to him now with the respect due to proven royalty. "My lords," Jon says, clasping Edmure's hand firmly, "I bring word from the king. The Reach has declared for us, adding 30,000 swords to our cause. The time has come to drive the lions from the Riverlands permanently." 30,000? Edmure's eyes widen. "By the gods, that changes everything." "Indeed it does. But first, we must deal with the raiders burning your lands." Jon moves to a table where maps of the Riverlands lie spread like fallen leaves. His finger traces the path of destruction left by Lannister forces. Here and here. They strike at isolated villages, then retreat to defensible positions. But they follow patterns, and patterns can be exploited. Ser Brynden leans over the map, his experienced eye taking in Jon's analysis. "You see something we missed, Your Grace?" "I see that they always retreat westward toward the hills. Always along the same paths to positions they've prepared in advance." Jon's finger traces a circle on the map. "If we could force them into this valley tomorrow night." "They'd be trapped between the river and the cliffs," Edmure finishes, understanding dawning in his eyes. "No escape route." "Exactly. But it requires perfect timing, and a force willing to act as bait." Jon looks up from the map, his grey eyes serious. "I'll lead the bait myself. 500 horse, riding hard and fast, to draw them into position." "Your Grace, that's suicide," Brynden protests. "If the timing is off, if they don't take the bait, then I'll be dead. And you can explain to Robert how you let his heir get himself killed in his first independent command." Jon's smile is grim but determined. "But if it works, we end the raiding and show the realm that dragons can think as well as fight." The next evening, Jon leads his cavalry in a thunderous charge across the Riverlands, his banner clearly visible in the fading light. The Lannister raiders take the bait as predicted, turning to pursue what appears to be a small force of northern knights fleeing in panic. They drive Jon's men toward the valley, confident in their superior numbers and local knowledge. But as night falls and the trap springs shut, the hunters become the hunted. Edmure's forces emerge from concealment on the valley's rim, while Brynden's knights block the only escape route. The Lannister raiders find themselves surrounded, cut off from aid or retreat. The battle is brief but brutal. Caught in the open without room to maneuver, the raiders are cut down or captured within the hour. Jon leads the final charge personally, his sword flashing in the moonlight as he strikes down the enemy commander. When dawn breaks, over 300 Lannister dead litter the valley floor. "Brilliant," Brynden admits as they survey the carnage. "You fight like Rhaegar but think like Robert. A dangerous combination for your enemies." Far across the narrow sea, in the sprawling camp of Khal Drogo, Daenerys Targaryen sits in her tent, reading reports brought by Tyroshi traders. The parchments speak of war in Westeros, of a dragon prince fighting for the Iron Throne, of her homeland tearing itself apart in civil conflict. "My sun and stars," she says to her husband, who reclines on silk cushions nearby. There is opportunity here. The 7 kingdoms bleed, their armies exhausted by war. A small force, arriving at the right moment. Drogo's dark eyes glitter with interest. You speak of conquest? I speak of reclaiming what was stolen from my family. This Jon Targaryen may call himself a prince, but I am the rightful queen, the last true dragon. Daenerys's violet eyes burn with sudden ambition. The Dothraki have never crossed the poison water. Perhaps it is time to show the world that the Dragon Queen rides with 40,000 screamers at her back. Meanwhile, in the Red Keep, Cersei Lannister stands in her chambers surrounded by green flames. Wildfire burns in a dozen glass containers, casting eerie shadows on the walls as the Queen contemplates the ultimate gambit. If she cannot hold the throne through strength of arms, perhaps she can deny it to everyone else. Your Grace, Grandmaster Pycelle ventures nervously. Surely this is unwise. Wildfire is dangerous, unpredictable. So am I, Cersei replies coldly. Robert thinks he has won because he controls the armies, but armies cannot hold a throne that no longer exists. If I cannot rule, I will ensure that no one else can either. The old Maester's face goes pale. The city, Your Grace, the innocent people. The people mean nothing. They bow to whoever wears the crown, cheering for conquerors one day, and their overthrow the next. Cersei turns from the wildfire, her green eyes reflecting its hellish glow. Let them burn with everything else. History will remember that the last true queen chose fire over surrender. As autumn deepens into early winter, Robert's forces march west toward the heart of Lannister power. The army has swollen to massive proportions with reinforcements from the Reach, but its target remains the most formidable fortress in Westeros. Casterly Rock looms ahead like a mountain of worked stone, its towers seeming to scrape the very clouds. Impressive, Jon admits, as they crest the final hill before the siege begins. I begin to understand why the Lannisters think themselves untouchable. Impressive, yes. Impregnable, no. Robert studies the ancient fortress through a spyglass, noting the defensive positions and potential weaknesses. Every castle can be taken, Jon. The question is whether the cost is worth the prize. In this case, it is. A new voice interjects. Tyrion Lannister rides up on his specially built saddle, his mismatched eyes glinting with bitter humor. My father thinks these walls make him invulnerable. He forgets that someone who grew up within them knows every secret passage, every weakness. The dwarf's defection has shocked the realm, but Jon finds himself oddly unsurprised. He has met Tyrion several times at court and recognized the sharp intelligence behind the wine-soaked exterior. A man that clever would not cling to a sinking ship out of blind loyalty. Why? Jon asks simply. Why betray your own family? Tyrion's expression grows serious. Because some things matter more than blood, Your Grace. Truth matters. Justice matters. And you, he pauses, studying Jon's face. You remind me that sometimes the best of us come from the most unlikely places. The siege of Casterly Rock begins 3 days later, with the methodical precision that Robert has learned from hard experience. Catapults hurl stones at the massive gates, while sappers begin the slow work of undermining the walls. But it is Tyrion's intelligence that proves most valuable, revealing the location of hidden cisterns and forgotten entrances. On the 5th night of the siege, Jon leads a desperate assault through one of these hidden passages. 50 picked men follow him into the darkness, creeping through tunnels that wind like serpents beneath the rock's foundations. The passage is barely wide enough for a man in armor, and the air grows thick and stifling as they climb. There, Tyrion whispers, pointing toward a section of wall that looks identical to all the others. The sally port opens just beyond the second gate. If you can take it. Jon nods grimly and signals his men forward. The next few minutes will determine whether they emerge as heroes or body. But as they creep through the final passage, Jon feels something stirring in his blood. Not fear, but exhilaration. This is what he was born for, what his dragon heritage demands. Not just to fight, but to lead men into impossible odds and somehow find victory. The sallyport opens onto chaos. Lannister defenders rush to repel the assault, while Jon's men fight with the desperation of the doomed. Steel rings against steel in the narrow space, and men fall on both sides. But Jon presses forward, his sword cutting through enemy ranks like fire through parchment. "The gate!" he shouts over the din. "Take the gate!" His men surge forward with renewed purpose, overwhelming the defenders through sheer audacity. The great gates of Casterly Rock swing open for the first time in 300 years, and Robert's host pours through like a flood. The strongest fortress in the Westerlands has fallen, and with it, the myth of Lannister invincibility. As dawn breaks over the conquered rock, Tywin Lannister stands in his solar one last time, staring out at the banners of his enemies. The game is over, the pieces scattered, the board cleared for a new match. Soon he will be dead or captive, his house broken, his legacy undone. But somewhere in King's Landing, his daughter tends her wildfire and plots one final move. The game may be ending, but the Queen still holds one last, terrible piece, and she will play it, regardless of the cost to herself or the realm she claims to love. The Dragon Prince has proven his worth in blood and fire, but the greatest test still lies ahead. For in the heart of the capital, madness and wildfire wait to crown the war with flame and ash. The great hall of Casterly Rock echoes with the clash of steel as the final battle rages within the heart of Lannister power. Tapestries burn and ancient statues topple as Robert's forces drive deeper into the fortress, room by fierce room. At the hall's center, Tywin Lannister makes his stand with the last of his household guard, his crimson cloak flowing around him like spilled blood. "Come then, usurper," Tywin calls out, his voice carrying over the din of battle. "Come and finish what you started 17 years ago." Robert advances through the melee, his warhammer dripping with the blood of lesser men. Behind him, Jon Targaryen cuts through Lannister defenders with a fury that seems to burn the very air around him. The young prince has been fighting for 3 hours without rest, his sword work growing more deadly with each passing moment. "You destroyed my dynasty," Tywin continues, raising his own blade. "You crowned a bastard over my grandson. Now you come to burn my house to its foundations." "I come to end your lies," Robert replies, hefting his hammer, "to show the realm what happens to those who would violence kings and steal thrones." The two lords circle each other, while their men give them space. This is more than combat. It is the judgment of history, the settling of accounts that have festered since the Mad King's fall. Around them, the battle continues, but all eyes turn toward the confrontation between lion and stag. Meanwhile, Jon finds himself pressed by 3 Lannister knights who have marked him as a prize worth claiming. His royal blood makes him a target, but it also feeds the fire that burns within his veins. As they attack from all sides, something awakens in Jon that has slept since birth. "Die, dragon spawn!" one knight shouts, thrusting at Jon's heart. Jon's blade moves like lightning, deflecting the thrust and opening the man's throat in a single fluid motion. Blood sprays across the hall as the knight falls, and Jon turns to face his remaining opponents with eyes that burn like molten silver. The fury that takes him is not madness, but something purer, something that his Targaryen blood recognizes and embraces. He moves through the combat like a dancer, his sword cutting patterns of death in the air. When the second knight falls with his chest carved open, the third tries to flee. Jon's blade finds him anyway, piercing between the shoulder blades and emerging from his chest. "7 hells," Tyrion breathes, watching from across the hall. He fights like Rhaegar reborn. But Jon's display of Targaryen fury serves a purpose beyond simple combat. As more enemies rush toward him, drawn by his royal blood like iron to a lodestone, he creates space for Robert's advance. The king presses his attack against Tywin, while Jon holds off the reinforcements. Uncle and nephew, fighting as one force despite the chaos around them. Tywin proves why he has never lost a battle, his blade work precise and economical. But Robert fights with the strength of righteousness, each blow of his hammer driven by 17 years of accumulated anger. When the weapons finally meet, the sound echoes through the hall like thunder. "You were a great lord once," Robert says as they strain against each other. "What happened to the man who served my father faithfully?" "He learned that loyalty is weakness," Tywin replies through gritted teeth. "That power is the only truth that matters." "Then you learned wrong." Robert's hammer crashes through Tywin's guard, catching him in the ribs with bone-crushing force. The old lion staggers but does not fall, blood running from his mouth as he raises his sword for one final strike. But the blow never lands. Jon appears behind him like a ghost, his blade sliding between Tywin's ribs and into his heart. "For the realm," Jon whispers as Tywin Lannister falls. The death of their lord breaks the remaining Lannister resistance. Men throw down their weapons and beg for quarter as the battle turns into a rout. But even as victory becomes certain, danger approaches from an unexpected direction. Far beneath Casterly Rock, in chambers that even Tyrion never knew existed, Cersei Lannister tends to her final gambit. Green flames dance around dozens of wildfire caches, enough destruction to bring down the entire mountain and everyone within it. If she cannot hold her throne, she will ensure that no one else can claim it. "Your Grace," Qyburn ventures nervously, "perhaps we should reconsider. There may yet be time to negotiate." "Negotiate?" Cersei's laugh is sharp as breaking glass. "With the man who ended my children's birthright, with the bastard who claims my son's throne." She runs her fingers along a glass container filled with green fire. "No, if I cannot rule, then let the world burn." Her hand moves toward the ignition mechanism, but footsteps echo in the chamber behind her. Jon Targaryen emerges from the shadows, his sword still fierce from the battle above. Somehow, in the chaos of victory, he has found his way to this hidden place. "Don't," he says quietly. "This isn't justice. This is madness." "Justice?" Cersei turns to face him, her green eyes wild with desperation. "You speak of justice while wearing my son's crown, while stealing his inheritance? Your son has no inheritance to steal. He was never Robert's child, never the rightful heir." Jon steps closer, his voice gentle despite the danger. "But that doesn't mean he deserves to burn for your sins." Such wisdom from a child. "Tell me, Dragon Prince, do you know what your grandfather did to my uncle? Do you know how Brandon Stark screamed as the flames consumed him?" Jon's face goes pale, but his voice remains steady. "I know the Mad King's crimes. I also know I won't repeat them." Cersei's hand hovers over the ignition mechanism. One touch, one moment of pressure, and the entire rock will vanish in green flame. Jon is too far away to stop her, too late to prevent the catastrophe she plans, but he doesn't try to reach her. Instead, he does something that catches the Queen completely off guard. He lowers his sword and extends his hand. "Come with me," he says simply. "Leave this place." "Live." "Live as what? A prisoner? A beggar?" "Live as a mother who chose her children over revenge. Live as a woman who remembered that mercy is stronger than hate." Jon's grey eyes meet hers across the chamber. "Your children need you, Cersei. Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen. Their innocence in this war. Don't make them orphans for the sake of pride." For a moment, Cersei hesitates. The wildfire waits, patient and terrible, while she struggles with choices that will echo through history. Then her hand jerks away from the mechanism, and she collapses to her knees among the green flames. "They're all I have," she whispers. "All I ever had." Jon sheathes his sword and moves to help her stand. "Then let's make sure they have a future worth living for." Above them, in the great hall, Robert tends to his wounds while his men secure the fortress. The victory is complete. Casterly Rock has fallen, Tywin is dead, and the Lannister forces are scattered. but the king's attention is focused on the narrow stairs that lead to the lower chambers, waiting for his nephew to return. "He's been gone too long," Ned observes, his hand resting on his sword hilt. "We should send men after him." "No," Robert says firmly. "If Jon is down there, he has his reasons. The boy has earned the right to finish this war his own way." When Jon finally emerges, leading a subdued Cersei and her remaining children, the hall falls silent. Joffrey's golden hair is matted with tears, while Myrcella and Tommen cling to their mother's skirts. They look like what they are, children caught in the collapse of their world. "Your Grace," Jon says formally, "I present Queen Cersei and her children. They surrender unconditionally and throw themselves upon your mercy." Robert studies the defeated queen for a long moment. Here is the woman who tried to harm him, who would have seen him dead in the Kingswood. Here are the children he has discovered are not his own, born of incest and lies. Justice would demand their deaths. But mercy demands something different. "Lady Cersei," Robert says at last, "you and your children will be exiled to the Summer Isles, there to live out your days in peace. You will renounce all claim to the throne, all connection to House Lannister, all ties to the realm that was once your home." Cersei raises her head, surprised by the unexpected clemency. "And if I refuse? Then you die here, and your children grow up in cells or worse." Robert's voice is implacable. "Choose wisely." "I accept," Cersei says quietly. "For my children, I accept." As the prisoners are led away under guard, Jon approaches Robert with a question that has been weighing on his mind. Was it right? Sparing them? "Right is a word that has many meanings," Robert replies. "Was it just? Perhaps not. Was it necessary? Absolutely." He places a hand on Jon's shoulder. "You prevented something terrible down there, didn't you? Wildfire, enough to bring down the mountain." Jon looks out at the setting sun through a shattered window. "She would have killed thousands to deny you victory. And instead, you showed mercy to the woman who would have ended us all." Robert's pride in his nephew is evident. "That's what separates you from the Mad King, Jon. That's what will make you a better ruler than any Targaryen who came before." As night falls over the conquered rock, the cost of victory becomes clear. Nearly 1,000 men lie dead in the halls and courtyards, their blood seeping into stones that have stood since the dawn of kingdoms. The Lannister dynasty is broken, but the price has been paid in honest lives and spilled blood. Yet in the great hall, where tapestries burn low and the smell of smoke mingles with the iron scent of battle, something new has been born. A dragon prince who fights with fire but rules with mercy. A king's nephew who understands that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when to stay one's hand. Jon Targaryen stands among the ruins of his enemy's power and realizes that the hardest battles are not won with sword and flame, but with the choices made in moments when no one is watching. Today he chose mercy over vengeance, life over death, hope over despair. The dragon has roared, and the realm has heard its voice. But it is not the voice of the Mad King or the conquering princes of old. It is something new, something worthy of the crown that waits for him in King's Landing. The war is ending, but the reign of Jon Targaryen has just begun. The Iron Throne gleams in the morning light as King Robert holds court in the great hall of the Red Keep. 3 months have passed since the fall of Casterly Rock, 3 months of trials and judgments that have reshaped the 7 kingdoms. The hall fills with lords great and small, all come to witness the formal establishment of a new order built on truth rather than lies. At Robert's right hand sits Jon Targaryen, no longer the bastard boy of Winterfell, but a prince of the blood who has earned his place through fire and steel. The crown of the Prince of Dragonstone rests upon a cushion beside him, waiting for the ceremony that will officially name him heir to the Iron Throne. "Bring forth the prisoner," Robert commands, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling. Sir Jaime Lannister enters in chains, his golden hair lank, and his once proud bearing reduced by months of captivity. Gone is the arrogant knight who killed his king. In his place stands a man who has seen his family's power crumble to dust. His green eyes find Jon's grey ones across the hall, and something passes between them. Not hatred, but a strange understanding. "Jaime of House Lannister," Robert begins formally, "you stand accused of king-slaying, treason and incest. How do you answer these charges?" Jaime raises his chin with a ghost of his old defiance. "Guilty to all, your grace. I regret nothing save that I failed to kill you when I had the chance." Murmurs ripple through the assembled crowd. Some call for his immediate condemned, others for the black cells. But Jon rises from his seat, drawing all eyes to himself. "Your grace," he says clearly, "I would speak on behalf of the prisoner." Robert's eyebrows rise in surprise. "You would defend the man who tried to violence us both?" "I would speak for justice over vengeance, mercy over revenge." Jon steps forward, his young voice carrying the authority of earned kingship. "Sir Jaime has confessed his crimes. Let his punishment fit not our anger, but our wisdom. And what punishment would you suggest, nephew?" Jon meets Jaime's eyes directly. "The wall. Let him take the black and spend his remaining years defending the realm he once betrayed. Let him find honor in service, redemption in sacrifice." The suggestion causes an uproar among the assembled lords. Some shout approval, others demand blood for blood. But Robert raises his hand for silence, his gaze moving between his nephew and the condemned knight. "The wall it is," the king declares. "Sir Jaime Lannister, you are condemned to take the black and serve at the wall until death. May you find the honor there that you lost here." As guards lead Jaime away, the former knight pauses beside Jon's chair. "Thank you," he says quietly, words meant for the prince alone. "You show mercy to those who showed you none." "I show mercy because the realm needs healing, not more bloodshed," Jon replies. "Make your life count for something, Sir Jaime. The Watch has need of experienced swords." The trials continue through the morning as lesser lords and knights face judgment for their roles in the war. Most receive pardons in exchange for renewed oaths of fealty, their lands restored, but their power diminished. Robert shows himself a conqueror who prefers integration to extermination, binding former enemies to his cause through mercy rather than fear. When the last judgment is rendered, the hall is cleared of all but the highest lords of the realm. Stannis Baratheon stands rigid in his formal court dress, while Renly manages to look elegant despite the early hour. Ned Stark bears witness as Hand, his weathered face showing approval of his nephew's growth into leadership. "Lords and ladies of the Seven Kingdoms," Robert begins, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall, "we gather to name the heir to the Iron Throne. Let all who hear these words know that Jon of House Targaryen, my nephew, through his mother Lyanna Stark, is hereby named Prince of Dragonstone and heir to the realm." Jon kneels before the throne as Robert descends to place the prince's crown upon his head. The circlet of silver and dragonbone feels heavier than any armor, weighted with the responsibility of an entire kingdom's future. "Rise, Prince Jon," Robert commands, "and take your place as my heir and successor." As Jon stands, the assembled lords kneel in acknowledgement of his new status. Even Stannis bends the knee, though his stern face shows neither approval nor disapproval. The deed is done. The succession is settled. The realm has a new prince to guide its future. Meanwhile, in the Tower of the Hand, Ned Stark spreads maps and documents across his desk as he plans the kingdom's reconstruction. The war has left scars across the Westerlands and Riverlands that will take years to heal. Villages must be rebuilt, crops replanted, and trust restored between houses that shed each other's blood. "The harvest will be lean this year," Maester Luwin reports, having travelled south to assist with the transition. Too many fields burned, too many farmers dead or fled. We'll need to import grain from Essos to prevent famine." "See to it," Ned replies, making notes on parchment, "and send ravens to the free cities. We'll trade gold for grain, iron for food. The small folk must not suffer for the sins of their lords." A knock at the door interrupts their planning. Jon enters with several scrolls under his arm, his new crown catching the light from the windows. "Uncle," he says formally, then relaxes into a more familiar tone. "Father, I have matters that require your counsel." Ned's smile shows his pleasure at hearing both titles used. "Speak freely. What troubles you?" "Marriage proposals." Jon sets the scrolls on the desk with obvious distaste. 17 offers arrived yesterday alone. Houses great and small, all eager to bind themselves to the new heir through matrimony. "As is their right and duty," Ned observes. "A prince's marriage is a matter of state, not personal preference." "I understand the politics, but—" Jon picks up one scroll at random. House Redwine offers their youngest daughter, promising a fleet of ships and the finest wines in the realm. House Hightower suggests a union with their niece, bringing the wealth of Old Town as dowry. Even houses from the north send proposals. The Mormonts, the Umbers, the Manderleys. All worthy matches, Lewin notes. Each would bring different advantages to the throne. "But none would bring happiness," Jon says quietly. "Am I to marry for duty alone, never knowing love as my parents did?" Ned's expression softens at the mention of Lyanna and Rhaegar. "Love in marriage is a luxury few princes can afford. But perhaps a bride could be found who offers both political advantage and personal compatibility." "Perhaps," Jon agrees, though his tone suggests little hope. "For now I've asked to delay any decisions until my 16th name day. That gives us time to evaluate the candidates properly." That evening, Robert summons Jon to the Royal Solar for a private conversation. The king looks older than his years, the war having aged him visibly despite his victory. Lines crease his face that were not there before, and grey threads his dark hair more thickly than before. "Tired?" Jon asks, noting his uncle's weary expression. "Bone-deep tired," Robert admits, pouring wine for both of them. "But satisfied. We've built something worth preserving, you and I. A throne based on truth rather than lies. At considerable cost. All worthwhile things cost blood and tears." Robert moves to the window, staring out at the city below. "The question now is whether you're ready for what comes next." "Which is?" "Rule, Jon. True rule, not just wearing a crown and holding court." Robert turns back to face his nephew. "I'm 45 years old. I've fought 3 wars, survived 2 elimination attempts, and buried more friends than I care to count. I want to see you established as king while I still live to guide you." Jon nearly drops his wine cup. "Your Grace, you speak as if I plan to abdicate?" "Perhaps I do." Robert's smile is tired but genuine. "Not immediately, mind you. Give me a few more years to enjoy victory, to see you married and settled, but I have no desire to die on the throne like some ancient dragon hoarding gold." The conversation is interrupted by a commotion in the courtyard below. Shouts echo off the castle walls as ravens arrive bearing urgent messages. Robert and Jon exchange glances before hurrying to the window. In the yard below, Varys emerges from the rookery with several scrolls, his face pale with whatever news they contain. He looks up toward the solar window and makes a gesture indicating urgent business. "The spider brings word," Robert observes grimly, and his expression suggests it's not good news. Within minutes, Varys glides into the solar with his characteristic silent grace. The scrolls in his hands bear seals from Pentos, Lys, and other free cities across the narrow sea. "Your Grace, Your Highness," he begins without preamble. Troubling news arrives from across the water. The Targaryen girl has begun moving westward with her Dothraki horde. More concerning still, she has acquired ships, 100 vessels provided by the merchant prince Illyrio Mopatis. Jon feels his blood chill. Daenerys? She means to invade. So it would seem, Your Highness. My little birds report that she styles herself the rightful queen and denounces your legitimization as a false claim. She brings 40,000 screamers and speaks of dragons returned to reclaim their birthright. Robert's face darkens like a storm cloud. Dragons, always more dragons. He turns to Jon with grim purpose. You understand what this means? War, Jon replies simply. She'll use my Targaryen blood against me, claim that I'm a pretender while she's the true heir. Exactly. The realm has just finished healing from one war. It cannot survive another so soon. Robert begins pacing, his strategic mind already working through possibilities. We need allies, ships, and above all, unity among the great houses. And if she truly has dragons? Jon asks quietly. The question hangs in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Dragons have been extinct for over a century, but the Targaryen name still carries the promise of their return. If Daenerys has somehow restored them. Then we'll face that threat when it comes, Robert says firmly. For now, we prepare for what we know she has. 40,000 Dothraki who have never tasted defeat. As the night deepens over King's Landing, ravens fly from the Red Keep, carrying urgent summons to every corner of the realm. The peace has been brief, but it may soon be tested by fire and blood from across the sea. Jon Targaryen stands on the battlements of his new home, the crown of the Prince of Dragonstone heavy on his brow. Below him, the city sleeps in blissful ignorance of the storm gathering in the east. Above him, the stars wheel in their courses, silent witnesses to the rise and fall of dynasties. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new tests of his worthiness to rule. But tonight, he is simply a young man who has found his place in the world, ready to defend it against all who would tear it down. The Dragon Prince has claimed his throne. Now he must prove worthy to keep it. The ancient throne of Dragonstone rises like a mountain of carved stone, its dragon-shaped seat worn smooth by centuries of Targaryen kings. Black candles burn in iron sconces, while banners bearing the three-headed dragon hang beside the crowned stag of Baratheon. The great hall fills with the most powerful lords in Westeros, all gathered to witness the formal coronation of Jon Targaryen as Prince of Dragonstone and heir to the Iron Throne. 2 years have passed since Robert survived the Boar in the Kingswood, 2 years of war and revelation that have reshaped the Seven Kingdoms. The boy who once cleaned stables at Winterfell now stands before the ancestral seat of his bloodline, no longer bastard or prince, but something greater, the future king of a united realm. Jon has grown tall in those 2 years, his frame filling out with the strength that comes from constant training and the burden of leadership. At 16, he carries himself with the unconscious authority of born royalty, though his grey eyes still hold the northern honor that Ned Stark taught him. The crown of the Prince of Dragonstone rests upon his dark hair, its silver bands and dragonbone inlays catching the light from 100 torches. Lords and ladies of the Seven Kingdoms, Robert's voice echoes through the hall as he stands before the ancient throne. We gather on this sacred ground where Aegon the Conqueror first planned his conquest, where dragons once roosted before taking wing to forge an empire. Today, we crown not just a prince, but the heir who will guide that empire into a new golden age. The assembled crowd includes faces that have become familiar over the years of reconstruction. Lord Stannis stands rigid in his formal blacks, his duty to the realm overcoming any personal reservations about Targaryen restoration. Lord Renly has grown from boy to man during the conflicts, his easy charm now backed by proven courage in battle. Ned Stark watches with the pride of a father, his weathered face showing satisfaction at seeing his nephew claim his birthright. "Approach, Prince John," Robert commands, and the hall falls silent as John walks the length of the chamber. Each step carries weight, not just of ceremony but of history. Here walked Aegon and his sisters. Here stood the dragon lords who conquered 7 kingdoms with fire and blood. But Jon's conquest will be different, built on justice rather than fear, on honor rather than terror. He kneels before the throne, his head bowed, as Robert begins the ancient words that have crowned princes for 3 centuries. But the king deviates from tradition, speaking from his heart rather than rote ceremony. "Jon of House Targaryen," Robert declares, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall, "you are the product of 2 noble bloodlines, the ice of the north and the fire of old Valyria. In you, the best qualities of both houses are united, the honor of Stark, the strength of Targaryen, tempered by wisdom and mercy." Jon raises his head to meet his uncle's eyes. In Robert's gaze he sees not just a king, but the man who loved Lyanna Stark enough to forgive her son's very existence. "Do you, Jon Targaryen, swear to defend the realm and all its people? To rule with justice and mercy, to protect the innocent and punish the guilty? To honor both your Stark heritage and your Targaryen blood?" "I do so swear," Jon replies, his voice carrying clearly through the silent hall. "By the old gods and the new, by ice and fire, I pledge my life to the service of the 7 kingdoms." Robert places his hands on Jon's shoulders, the touch conveying more than ceremony. It passes the weight of kingship from uncle to nephew, from the old generation to the new. "Then rise, Jon Targaryen, Prince of Dragonstone, heir to the Iron Throne, protector of the realm." Robert's voice grows stronger with each title. "Rise and take your place as the future of House Targaryen and the 7 kingdoms." As Jon stands, the assembled lords drop to one knee in acknowledgement of his authority. Even proud Stannis bends his knee without hesitation, recognizing the legitimacy of blood and conquest combined. Later, as the formal ceremonies give way to celebration, Robert draws Jon aside for a private moment. They climb the winding stairs to Dragonstone's highest tower, where the ancient chamber of the Painted Table awaits. The great map of Westeros stretches before them, inlaid with precious stones marking every castle and city in the realm. "Your ancestors planned their conquest from this very room," Robert says, running his hand along the table's edge. "Aegon stood here and dreamed of uniting the 7 kingdoms under dragon banners. And now their descendant stands here, sworn to protect what they built," Jon replies, "though I hope to do so through different means. Peace is always preferable to war, but sometimes war chooses us, whether we will it or not." Robert moves to the chamber's great window, staring out at the narrow sea beyond. Ravens continue to arrive from Essos. The girl gathers strength and allies. Soon we may face the greatest test yet. Jon joins him at the window, following his uncle's gaze toward the eastern horizon. Daenerys. "Your aunt, though she'd likely deny the relationship. She sees you as a pretender, a false dragon wearing stolen honors." Robert's expression grows grim. "When she comes, and she will come, the realm must be ready. It will be. The great houses stand united as never before. The North remembers its oaths. The Reach provides grain and gold. The Riverlands heal under just rule." Jon's voice carries quiet confidence. "We've built something worth defending." "Yes, we have." Robert claps his nephew on the shoulder. "But there are other threats stirring beyond the wall of ice. My brother Benjen sends troubling reports from the Night's Watch. Strange things in the far north, old powers awakening." The mention of ancient evils sends a chill through Jon despite the chamber's warmth. He has heard the stories, the legends of the long night when darkness covered the world and the dead walked among the living. If such threats truly stir, then we'll face them as we've faced everything else, Jon says simply. Together, united, with steel and fire if necessary, but always with honor. Their conversation is interrupted by approaching footsteps. Ned Stark emerges from the stairwell, his face bearing news that requires immediate attention. "Your Grace, Your Highness," he says formally, then relaxes into a more familiar tone. "The new small council awaits your pleasure. There are matters of state requiring attention." The three men descend to the council chamber where the realm's new leadership is assembled. Gone are the corruption and divided loyalties that marked the old council. In their place sit men chosen for competence and honor rather than gold or family connections. Lord Stannis has accepted the position of Master of Ships, his iron discipline perfect for rebuilding the Royal Navy. Sir Davos Seaworth, the former smuggler, serves as Master of Coin, his common-born wisdom bringing practical knowledge to royal finances. Grand Maester Samwell Tarly has replaced the aged Pycelle, his gentle nature hiding a sharp intellect perfect for advising kings. "My lords," Jon addresses the council with the easy authority that 2 years of leadership have taught him, "what matters require our attention?" "The harvest reports, Your Highness," Sir Davos begins. "The reconstruction efforts show excellent progress. The Riverlands produce surplus grain for the first time in 3 years, while the Westerlands gold mines operate at full capacity under royal oversight." "Excellent news. Continue." "Less pleasant tidings from the east," Lord Stannis reports with his characteristic bluntness. "Our spies in the Free Cities report that the Targaryen girl has acquired a marriage alliance with House Martell. Prince Doran offers ships and safe landing in exchange for promises of vengeance against those who wronged his sister." Jon absorbs this information without visible reaction, though inside he feels the weight of approaching conflict. How many ships? Perhaps 50, though Dornish vessels are built for speed rather than carrying capacity. Stannis consults his notes. More concerning are the reports of her dragons. 3 beasts, small but growing rapidly. If the accounts are accurate— "They are," Sam interjects quietly. "I've received letters from the Citadel. The Maester's chain includes scholars who study such creatures. Dragons grow quickly when well fed, and reports suggest these are indeed the genuine articles." The council chamber falls silent as the implications sink in. Dragons have been extinct for over a century, their return changing every strategic calculation. But Jon has faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious. "Then we prepare for dragons as well as Dothraki," he says calmly. "History tells us they can be killed. Dorne proved that at the Hellholt, Prince Rhaegar proved it at Harrenhal. Fire can be fought with steel and strategy." After the council disperses, Jon makes his way to the ancient crypts beneath Dragonstone. Here lie the bones of his ancestors, the dragon kings who ruled before madness consumed their line. But he seeks a newer monument, a simple tomb bearing his mother's name. Robert and Ned join him in the candle-lit chamber, 3 men united by love for a woman who died too young. Lyanna's effigy shows her as she was, young, beautiful, and fierce, with flowers carved in her stone hands. "She would be proud," Robert says quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "Her son stands ready to become everything she dreamed a Targaryen king could be. Everything Rhaegar might have been, had he lived," Ned adds. "Honor and strength, wisdom and mercy, ice and fire in perfect balance." Jon kneels before his mother's tomb, placing his hand on the cold stone. "I won't fail her memory. Whatever comes, whatever threats emerge, I'll protect the realm she died to give me." As the 3 men stand in silent remembrance, a raven's cry echoes through the castle above. More news from the wide world, more challenges to face, more tests of the dynasty they have built through blood and sacrifice. But for this moment, in the quiet of the crypts, there is peace. The bastard boy of Winterfell has become the Prince of Dragonstone. The realm stands united under just rule. The future stretches ahead like an unwritten song, full of promise and possibility. When they emerge from the crypts, the sun is setting over the narrow sea, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Jon stands on Dragonstone's ancient battlements, wearing both the dragon pin of his blood and the direwolf badge of his upbringing. Behind him, loyal lords feast in celebration of his coronation. Before him, the sea stretches toward challenges yet to come. The Dragon Prince has found his place in the world, but greater tests await. Across the narrow sea, another dragon gathers strength for conquest. Beyond the wall, ancient evils stir in the depths of winter. The Game of Thrones continues, but Jon Targaryen will play it with honor, guided by the lessons of ice and fire that have shaped him. The realm has found its prince, and the prince has found his purpose. Whatever storms may come, they will weather them together. Uncle and nephew, king and heir, the living legacy of Lyanna Stark's love and Robert Baratheon's honor. The long night may be coming, but for now, spring has arrived in the Seven Kingdoms, and in the dawn of this new age, a dragon soars again over Westeros, carried on wings of justice rather than conquest, breathing hope instead of flame. That's our theory. The Seven Kingdoms is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.